A former leader of the militant Vuceramos organization said yesterday that he kidnap of Patricia I Learslow, 19, was counter-revolutionary. It will alienate the masses. H. Bruce Franklin, a former Stanford University English professor and an avowed Maoist, said in an interview. Franklin said the Symbionese Liberation Army used political language in its letters to the news media, but nothing in their plan seems to make sense. Revolutionaries AHOU1D try to educate and organize, like the weather people did. They took action against a specific thing, like the Kono Putra in Tile Pentagon. Of Palada. Chronology. One cannot imagine what political movement the SLA is part of. I blame this on the government in power in the country. The whole moral fabric of the society is falling apart. We had Mansu and now we have the SLA. Actress Jane Fonda said in a telephone interview from Washington, D.C., as an American citizen in this point in time I oppose any form of kidnapping. New left does not kidnap and I don't think it a useful tactic. And in another interview with radical leaders, David Dubois, editor of the Black Panther newspaper, said, "This kidnap is anti-revolutionary. It sounds to me as if the Symbionese Liberation Army is an arm of the most right-wing forces in this KNRV. These people are engaged in a campaign to ignite terror, violence, and racial conflict in Oakland because Trias is the home of the Black Panther Party." Al Richmond, former People's World editor who broke with the Communist Party after a 45-year association, said, "One generally consider ACS like the kidnap as feudal bti-icon / letter to the people. From FAIH//Lee. Loniat T name Nancy Ling Peitai. *RO those V/ik, would bear the hopes A/D. LRULE OK the people, let the voice up. Their guns express the VVORDVS of freedom / Greetings, RNY comrades, sisters and brothers, all love. Po/air and freedom to you. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to speak to you, even though I know that what I am feeling cannot be completely expressed in words. You may have heard of me. Not because I am any more important than any of you, but simply because my former name has been in the news lately. My name was Nancy Ling Perry, but my true name is Faiza. What that name? *Tli is the text OT a letter sent to T, i.e. Examiner and other media postmarked January 17. Large I-ortvam were printed in the Examiner on January 19. The full text TS printed now because of its pertinence in Understand Vigtite at San Quentin concentration camp. I am still with other members of the SLA Information/Intelligence Unit, and I am hiding only from the enemy and not from the people. One have no intention of deserting my commitment, nor would I ever try to run away from it, because I have learned that there is no flight to freedom except that of an armed projectile. Although it is the practice of the Symbionese Liberation Army to act rather than talk, I am compelled to speak because I wish to make clear my position and why I am fighting, what it is I am fighting for, what the purpose and nature of the SIJV Information/Intelligence Unit is, and why I will continue to fight. First of all, I think I should tell you something about my background and the evolution of my consciousness. Basically, one have three backgrounds. I have a work background, a love background, and a prison background. My prison background means that I have close ties and feelings with our incarcerated brothers and sisters. What they have taught me is that if people on the outside do not understand the necessity of defending them without force of DNII, then it is because these people on the outside do not yet realize that they are in immediate danger of being thrown into concentration camps themselves, tortured, or down in the streets for expressi /g their BAs. WHIUNV love background taught me was a whole lot of me is ale about, and that the greater one's capacity is. The greater is one's longing for freedom, WTR_TNVVMJRK Brigrapun taught me is that one of the things every revolutionary does is to fight to get back her or his own labor and the control of his L has since taught me the realities of what fascism, imperialism, and genocide moan, and have discovered TNE truth Ikes, UTUIE military takeover and the police slate dictatorship, not because I studied about it in college, but because one see it every day, and Bika2.se truth is something that is honestly known, as easily as beauty is seen. There is no need for me to relate here every tiling that I have seen, or everything that I am sure you are already aware I am sure, my sisters and brothers, that you realize that the GovMNL is now in the rapid and steady process of removing UIE means of survival from lower class and giving these benefits to the middle class in an effort to rally support from them. And as the government is removing these means of survival from the people, then naturally the people who have been robbed must take back what rightfully belongs to them, and taji back what they need in order to survive. This the current dictatorship calls a crime, whether they take food from RHE grocery store, or take to the streets to make a speech, or take a gun in their hand to defend themselves. February 12, 197 Carrot. HW. You probably will need this bit of background on the Symbionese Liberation Army. The name apparently is taken from symbiosis, a biological term referring to different life forms living together to mutual advantage. U*11 want to examine carefully Faiza's letter, with attention to the second column where she says the takeover began in 1963 with the JFK assassination and that its end result was Nixon. I would put this bit of insight down to just a slightly different radical approach, except that these kids apparently have a good supply of CYF_IDET which is not easily come by. Makes me wonder if they have some influential backing, from somewhere far in the background, like someone interested in warning Nixon that a connection can be made. You might try this on for size and let me know how it strikes you. I'm also impressed by the confusion among other radical groups. They appear quite bewildered and realty make no attempt to analyze Slaw's motives but merely try to take themselves out of the picture by disassociation. Her voice recorded on Friday. By Carolyn Ann Spocher. The small, breathy voice of kidnapped publishing heiress Patricia Hearst was spun out on yards of tape yesterday to reassure her parents that she was still alive. But implicit in the message was the chilling warning that unless demands by the Symbionese Liberation Army are met fully and speedily, her life may be in jeopardy. The demands were made on Miss Hart's father, Randolph A. Hearst. The 19-year-old Miss Hearst recorded her message last Friday. On that day in Kuwait, she said, the commandos negotiated the release of their hostages and left the country. Speaking almost as if there were weights on her chest, Miss Hearst addressed her parents through a maze of pauses and the frequent sigh of heavy breathing. She was all right, she said, aside from a few scrapes and stuff. Patricia said she had a cold but they're giving me pills for it and stuff. She said she was not being starved or beaten or unnecessarily frightened. She was being kept blindfolded most of the time so that I can't identify anyone and, she added, her hands are often tied. I am not gagged or anything, she went on, I'm comfortable and I think you can tell that I'm not really terrified or anything and okay. Carrot. Miss Hearst said she was very upset about a raid last week on an Oakland house and said she would appreciate it if everyone would just calm down and not try to find me and not try to make identifications because they're not only endangering me but they're endangering themselves. Miss Hearst made it clear she was not with a bunch of nuts but with a deadly earnest, armed combat unit. She said her captors are perfectly willing to die for what they're doing, and she added, I want to get out of here, but the only way I'm going to is if we do it their way. Miss Hearst interrupted herself to say that she was operating the tape recorder, stopping and starting it so she could collect her thoughts. But she did not explain the background sounds audible during the back page kernel 4. Daughter. From page 1. Frequent pauses. She warned her father to take the SLA request seriously and declared that its members have really been honest with me and I feel pretty sure that I'm going to get out of here if everything goes the way they want it to. Asterisk. The army, she said, has ideological ties with people's struggles for independence throughout the world and as such consider themselves soldiers. She herself, she said, is a prisoner of war, as are two SLA members now held in San Quentin prison on charges of murdering Oakland School Superintendent Marcus Foster last November. I'm being treated in accordance with the Geneva Convention and one of the conditions being that I are being tried for crimes which I'm not responsible for, she said. I'm here because I'm a member of a ruling class family and I think you can begin to see the analogy. The men in San N and Vice President Ford present. The SLA's General Field Marshal said that the girl's mother, Catherine Campbell Hurst, is a member of the Board of Regents of the University of California, and the board has world-wide investments that exploit the people of Mozambique, Rhodesia, and other countries. The kidnap victim is herself a student at the University of California. She was abducted at gunpoint the night of February 4 from the apartment of her fiancé, Stephen Weed, at 2603 Benvenue Avenue in Berkeley. The ransom letter that accompanied the taped messages directed Hurst to provide $70 worth of meat, vegetables, and dairy products to all people with welfare cards, Social Security pension cards, food stamp cards, disabled veteran cards, Medi-Cal cards, parole or probation papers and jail or bail release slips. It suggested that stores such as Safeway and Mayfair be used as distribution points. The letter also demanded that full media exposure be given to the seven-headed cobra that is the insignia of the SLA, and to a lengthy declaration of Revolutionary War and the Symbionese program. The latter document was in the bombastic language that has marked past communications from the group. It dwelt repeatedly on the murder, oppression, and exploitation of the people, and said the Symbionese Liberation Army was determined to end this. We are a united front and federated coalition of members from the Asian, Black, Brown, Indian, White, Women, Gray and Gay liberation movements, said the declaration of war. The letter was mailed somewhere on the San Francisco Peninsula. Previous communications have been mailed in Marin County, Berkeley, and San Francisco. Like the first letter that was received last Thursday, it was sent to radio station KPFA in Berkeley. The first letter said only that Miss Hurst had been arrested by the Symbionese Liberation Army, presumably because her father is a corporate enemy of the people. In yesterday's taped message, General Field Marshal Sink said that for security reasons, future communications would not be frequent. The history of political kidnappings in other countries is that there have often been long gaps between messages from the kidnappers. The abduction of Miss Hurst is the first political kidnapping in the United States, and has attracted world-wide attention. Charles Bates, local head of the FBI, said no one in his office recognized the voice of Sink on yesterday's tape. He also declared that there was no indication the girl has been removed from the Bay Area. The demand in the Hurst kidnap, envisioning the biggest single food giveaway in California's history, was greeted with careful silence yesterday by the authorities and most of the radical reform groups that were listed in the letter from the Symbionese Liberation Army. It was clear, however, that the logistics involved in supplying an estimated $350 million worth of food to approximately 5 million Californians would be staggering. The timetable for delivery in 7 California cities, including San Francisco, Oakland, Richmond, East Palo Alto and Santa Rosa, allows 4 weeks starting next Tuesday. Food would be distributed at well-known retail stores on each Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday so that those qualifying for the handout will not be forced to stand waiting in long lines. According to the Symbionese Liberation Army, those qualifying, the demand said, are all people with welfare cards, Social Security pension cards, food stamp cards, disabled veteran cards, Medi-Cal cards, parole or probation papers. Back page COL1. From page 1. And jail or bail release slips. Welfare authorities at both the state and local levels said it would be impossible to produce a close approximation of the numbers involved. Many aid recipients are on two programs, and in the case of persons on probation, for instance, the figures are kept by separate counties. Working on base figures of 3 million Social Security beneficiaries in California and 1.4 million state welfare recipients, a conservative estimate would be 1 in every 4 Californians, the experts said. Supermarkets like Safeway and Mayfair were proposed by the kidnappers to distribute the $70 worth of meats, vegetables, and dairy products. A Mayfair spokesman declined comment, and Safeway issued a statement saying that police authorities will be determining what action they will recommend in this matter and will undoubtedly advise the business community of their recommendations. The kidnappers, addressing the people, said, "If you are not receiving your food, all you have to do is voice your discontent in the streets, at bus stops, movie theaters, etc., and we will hear about." The kidnappers then called upon community groups to act as observers and co-ordinators to see to it that the aged and the disabled receive their food and ways to transport it and shop for it, and to see to it that no police state agents, in or out of uniform, are allowed to be in the areas of food distribution or photograph or harass the people. The letter specifically suggested the Nairobi College in East Palo Alto, Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco, the Black Teachers Caucus, the National Welfare Rights Organization, the United Farm Workers, AIM, Third World Women's Alliance, United Prisoners Union, Getting Together, Kalian, Triple Jeopardy, Black Panther Party and the Anvil. The Reverend Edward L. Peet, president of the California Legislative Council for Older Americans, angrily rejected the food giveaway demanded yesterday by the kidnappers of Patricia Hearst. "We will go hungry before we accept food under the threat of violence," Peet, 72, said. He said he was speaking for 1 million people represented by his council. Popeye Jackson, president of the United Prisoners Union, said, "Speaking as an individual, one wouldn't wish her any harm. We will gladly do what we may be asked to do to help, but what about the thousands of badly treated prisoners in California's concentration camps?" Representatives of other organizations contacted by the Chronicle said they were in no position to comment because they were still studying the demands. A statement issued by Cesar Chavez United Farm Workers said, "We know nothing about the demands which are being made beyond the reports which the press has given us today. We are concerned with the safety and release of Miss Hearst." Nairobi College, the Black Panther Party and Glide Memorial Church were separately considering their response, officials said. In Sacramento, Philip J. Newlin, Chief Deputy Director of the State Department of Social Welfare, declined to comment as to whether such a mass giveaway program is feasible. State Senator James Mills, acting governor in the absence out of state of Governor Ronald Reagan and Lieutenant Governor Ed Reinica, said he had no comment on the demand. Word from kidnappers about the kidnapping of Patricia Hearst. This was how radio station KPFA in Berkeley. Station's news director, Paul Fisher, read the looked at 10 a.m. yesterday. 63 re. of Slaw's long statement as television cameras. Porters and cameramen had crowded into a tape recording of Miss Hearst's L2 by 12-foot studio to listen to the communication from the Symbionese Liberation Army and Slaw Field Marshal RV. Here is the statement by a member of the Symbionese Liberation Army which preceded the voice of Patricia Hearst on the tape recording sent to radio station KPFA yesterday. To those who would bear the hopes and future of our people that the voice of their guns express the words of freedom. Greetings to the people, and fellow comrades, brothers, and sisters. My name is Sink and to my comrades I am known as CIN. I am a black man and a representative of black people. I hold the rank of General Field Marshal in the United Federated Forces of the Symbionese Liberation Army. Today I have received an order from the Symbionese War Council, the Court of the People, to the effect that I am ordered to convey the following message in behalf of the SLA and to insert a taped word of comfort and verification that Patricia Campbell Hearst is alive and safe. The Symbionese Liberation Army is the federated union of military political elements of many different liberation struggles and of many different races. Our unified purpose is to liberate the oppressed peoples of this nation and to aid other oppressed people around the world in their struggle against fascist imperialism and the robbery of their freedom and homeland. Since this is the purpose and goal of the SLA, it is therefore clear to us, as it will be to all oppressed people, that our interest is to serve and defend the people and not ourselves. Since the people shall always come first in our hearts and souls. The SLA has arrested the subject for the crimes that her mother and father have by their actions committed against we the American people and the oppressed people of the world. In understanding of this charge, we must first understand who the Hearsts are, and who they serve and represent. Randolph A. Hearst is the corporate chairman of the fascist media empire of the ultra-right Hearst Corporation, which is one of the largest propaganda institutions of this present military dictatorship of the militarily armed corporate state that we now live under in this nation. The primary goal of this empire is to serve and form the necessary propaganda and smokescreen to shield the American people from seeing the realities of the corporate dictatorship which Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford represent. This network of propaganda and confusion has succeeded in hiding the truth from the people. That truth being that this nation has suffered its first military corporate coup and that the Constitution, which some of us still believe in, has been overthrown. The fascist Hearst Corporation is composed of, firstly, a national newspaper syndicate which includes the San Francisco Examiner and Chronicle and others which jump from California and to as far away as New York and Philadelphia. Secondly, a magazine monopoly composed of over 13 publications, which include, for example, House Beautiful, Harper's Bazaar, Town and Country, and Cosmopolitan. Thirdly, a TV and radio station empire across the nation with production of propaganda films of both national and international use. Fourth, ownership of vast areas of real estate in the United States and Mexico, forests, grasslands, and cattle farms. All of this is directly connected to Washington and the corporate dictatorship of Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. That is to say that the Hearst Empire is one of the empires of the ruling class and whose interests serve the rich and are in direct contradiction with the interests of the people. Therefore they are enemies of the people. Mrs. Randolph A. Hearst is a member of the University of California Board of Regents and is responsible along with others appointed by Governor Ronald Reagan for the loaning of funds and the investments of our California tax monies in corporations which have interests and do gain profit from the robbery, oppression, and genocide carried out by fascist and racist governments around the world and within the United States itself. The regents with the support of Mrs. Hearst have time and time again been requested by we the people to not invest our money in such fascist corporations as General Motors, Westinghouse, Gulf, Standard Oil, Bank of America and others who have and do serve and gain profit from the oppression, robbery, and murder that is committed against black people of South Africa, where 70,000 black children a year die from malnutrition, against white people of Ireland where U.S. trained British soldiers shoot down in the street Irish fathers and mothers as U.S. manufactured tear gas suffocates Irish children as their older sisters and brothers rot in British concentration camps, against the freedom of the Philippine people by United States and Marcos's puppet soldiers use U.S. manufactured napalm to attempt to burn away the spirit of freedom from the hearts and souls of the poor and starving. The UC Board of Regents, one of California's largest foreign investors, supports through its investments the murder of thousands of black women and children of Mozambique, Angola, and Rhodesia, murder designed to destroy the spirit that all humanity longs for. With all these crimes placed before the Board of Regents and Mrs. Hearst, with all the pleas from the people to stop supporting these corporations, and the murder of thousands of men, women, and children, the Board, and Mrs. Hearst, did not raise one voice in protest or refuse to be a party to these crimes committed against the American people. For these acts and others the court of the people hold the Hearst family accountable for their crimes and hold that they are enemies of the people. We of the Symbionese Liberation Army hold the Hearst Corporation and the Hearst family and won the Board of Regents as well as the corporate states which they support and aid are enemies of the people, and as such that the people have a legal and human right and duty to attack said enemy according to the forms of war taken by the oppressed people against any enemy or murderer and oppressor to regain their freedom and liberty and to give life to their children and people. It is therefore the directive of this court that before any form of negotiations for the release of the subject prisoner be initiated that an action of good faith be shown on the part of the Hearst family to allow the court and the oppressed people of this world and this nation to ascertain as to the real interest and cooperative attitude of the Hearst family and in so doing show some form of repentance for the murder and suffering they have aided and profited from, and this good faith gesture is to be in the form of a token gesture to the oppressed people that they aid the corporate state in robbing and removing their rights to freedom and liberty. This gesture is to be in the form of food to the needy and the unemployed and to which the following instructions are directed to be followed to the letter. In closing, and in speaking personally for myself, and as a father of 2 children, I'll wish to say to Mr. Hearst and Mrs. Hearst that I, as well as the forces under my command to the authority of the court of the people, are not savage killers and madmen and we do hold a high moral value to life. We value life very deeply and with all the spirit that we as human beings can bring forth in our hearts, but speaking as a father I am quite willing to lose both my children if by that action I could save thousands of white, black, yellow, and red children from a life of suffering, exploitation and murder, and I am therefore quite willing to carry out the execution of your daughter to save the life of starving men, women, and children of every race and I am also, along with the loyal men and women of many races who love the people, quite willing to give our lives to freeing the people at any cost and if as you and others so naively believe that we will lose, let it be known that even in death we will win, for the very ashes of this fascist nation will mark our very graves. At this point in the tape, Patricia Hearst made her statement. Then the man who identified himself as Sink concluded with, "Mr. Hearst, as your daughter said, she's being held under the international codes of war regarding prisoners of war and that is she is not going to be harmed in any manner unless any attempt is made to release her by force. She is being properly treated, properly fed, and she has an exercise area, fresh air and so forth and she is not being harmed in any fashion. And this is also related to our captured soldiers that are being held at San Quentin and we hope that they will receive the same treatment according to the international codes of war. We understand from the national reports and so forth that the police authorities and others are attempting to place the responsibility upon us concerning the life of your daughter and to distort and mislead the realities of the facts of the matter. However, we wish to express to you and to the authorities and to the public that whatever happens to your daughter will be totally your responsibility and the responsibility of the authorities which you represent. Her life will be maintained in the fashion that is accorded to the terms of war and if they and yourself violate these, her life and the blood of that will be upon your hands only. In regards to communications, for security reasons and because of where we are at, it is not possible for us to maintain a continuous flow of communications with you. So don't expect phone calls or communications 3 or 4 times a week because they won't come. When the stated good faith gesture is conducted and we have means to ascertain as to if they are, we will begin negotiations for the release of your daughter. Until then, you can be sure and have our word, whatever that may be to you, that we will carry out our word to the letter and we mean exactly what we say. Death to the fascist insect that preys upon the life of the people. It's really up to you. Patricia Hearst's message. Here is the transcript of Patricia Hearst's tape-recorded remarks delivered yesterday to her family. Mom, Dad. I'm okay. I had a few scrapes and stuff, but they washed them up and they're getting okay. And I caught a cold, but they're giving me pills for it and stuff. I'm not being starved or beaten or unnecessarily frightened. I've heard some press reports and so I know that Steve and all the neighbors are okay and that no one was really hurt. And I also know that the SLA members here are very upset about press distortions of what's been happening. They have nothing to do with the August 7th movement. They have not been shooting down helicopters or shooting down innocent people in the streets. I'm kept blindfolded usually so that I can't identify anyone. My hands are often carrot-tied, but generally they're not. I'm not gagged or anything, and I'm comfortable. And I think you can tell that I am not really terrified or anything and that I'm okay. I was very upset though to hear that police rushing in on that house in Oakland, and I was really glad that I wasn't there, and I would appreciate it if everyone would just calm down and try not to find me and not be making identifications, because they're not only endangering me but they're endangering themselves. I'm with a combat unit that's armed with automatic weapons, and there's also a medical team here, and there's no way that I will be released until they let me go, so it won't do any good for somebody to come in here and try to get me out by force. These people aren't just a bunch of nuts. They've been really honest with me, but they're perfectly willing to die for what they are doing. And I want to get out of here, but the only way I'm going to is if we do it their way. And I just hope that you'll do what they say, Dad, and just do it quickly. I've been stopping and starting this tape myself, so that I can collect my thoughts. That's why there are so many stops in it. PM not being forced to say any of this. I think it's really important that you take their requests very seriously about not arresting any other SLA members and about following their good faith request to the letter. I just want to get out of here and see everyone again and be back with Steve. The SLA is very interested in seeing how you're taking this, Dad, and they want to make sure that you are really serious and listening. SLA's possible origin. The style and rhetoric of the Symbionese Liberation Army may have been borrowed from a thriller-type novel about an uprising in Chicago's Black Ghetto. The novel, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, was written in 1969 by Mam Greenlee and concerns a small, armed commando unit called the Cobras. The symbol of the SLA is a seven-headed cobra. The book mentions the relatively obscure term symbiology, which may have been adapted by the East Bay Underground Group. The root word is symbiosis, a biological and sometimes psychological term for separate organisms living together comfortably. To what they're saying. And they think that you've been taking this whole thing a lot more seriously than the police and the FBI and other federal people have been taking it. It seems to be getting to the point where they're not worried about you so much as they're worrying about other people. Or at least I am. It's really up to you to make sure that these people don't jeopardize my life by charging in and doing stupid things, and I hope you will make sure that they don't do anything else like that Oakland house business. The SLA people really have been honest with me, and I feel pretty sure that I'm going to get out of here if everything goes the way they want it to. And I think you should feel that way too and try not to worry so much. I know it's hard, but I heard that Mom was really upset and that everybody was at home. I hope that this puts you a little bit at ease so that you know that I really am alright. I just hope I can get back to everybody really soon. The SLA has ideological ties with the IRA, the People's Struggle in the Philippines, and the Socialist people in Puerto Rico in their struggle for independence, and they consider themselves to be soldiers who are fighting and aiding these people. I am a prisoner of war, and so are the two men in San Quentin. I am being treated in accordance with the Geneva Convention, one of the conditions being that I am not being tried for crimes which PM not responsible for. I am here because I am a member of a ruling class family, and I think you can begin to see the analogy. The people in San Quentin are being held and are going to be tried **s.ci. Simply because they are members of the SLA and not because they've done anything. Witnesses low the shooting of Foster saw black men. And 2 white men have been arrested for this. You're being told this so that you'll understand why I was kidnapped, and so that you'll understand that whatever happens to the 2 prisoners is going to happen to me. You have to understand that I am held to be innocent the same way the 2 men in San Quentin are innocent, that they are simply members of the group and had not done anything themselves to warrant their arrest. They apparently were part of an intelligence unit and have never executed anyone themselves. The SLA has declared war against the government, and it's important that you understand that they know what they're doing and they understand what their actions mean. And that you realize that this is not considered by them to be just a simple kidnapping and that you don't treat it that way and say, oh, I don't know why she was taken asterisk. PM telling you now why this happened so that you will know and so that you'll have something to use, some knowledge to try to get me out of here. If you can get the food thing organized before the 19th, then that's okay and it would just speed up my release. V. Today is Friday the 8th and in Kuwait the commandos negotiated the release of their hostages and they left the country by Hearst. Response to tape. He says he'll do all he can. By Kevin Wallace. The important thing for us is that Patty is safe, Rudolph Hearst told TB army of media reporters at his front door yesterday, moments after his kidnapped daughter's taped voice was broadcast over the radio. As to the difficult demands for a massive gesture of good faith set forth in OIB kidnapper's taped message, he said without a flicker of hesitation, certainly we'll do everything within our power to comply. Later in the day, at the AIM spot, a relative and spokesman, Jack Cook, aide the FAMILY was already at work on those efforts, studying the complex terms, and giving consideration to every demand. Cook said agencies and institutions involved in the massive food distribution program specified by the IDMAPers as the gesture pound good faith would be attacked for discussions about the demands. He noted that the taped OSH did give Mr. Lears several days to react 6 the demand till a week Tom now. In the ensuing days, there will be a diligent effort laid to determine if complete compliance is in Bisluristation, Cook said. While the Hearsts were listening to the taped message broadcast inside their Hillsborough home, reporters and camera men in the yard listened over there. By Barney Peterson. Hearst clasped wife's hand as he announced letter from kidnappers. Transistor radios. Immediately upon conclusion of the broadcast, Hearst emerged through the front door, accompanied by his wife, Catherine. As she had done on so many previous appearances in the preceding week, Mrs. Hearst stood silent and centraled beside her husband, her left hand in his right hand, and her right hand crossed over to touch his right wrist. You as usual, Hearst was grave and plain-spoken in responding to questions. Asked if he would request the FBI to cease its work on the kidnapping, he replied that he could not control a government agency, but added, I'd like to assure these people that nobody's going to go rushing up to some house and start shooting. I have been assured by the FBI that their first concern is for Patricia's safety. At the later briefing by Cook, a reporter asked how the media koki neep in TNE news situation. Cook answered, you read and heard the SLA communication. As closely as you can comply with the demands as they pertain to you would be helpful. Asterisk. Rain showers through the day sent the media crew scurrying to shelter in the Hearst garage and in their cars and vans parked along the tree-lined street. But phone company crews personnel from 4 company vans, a cherry picker and a huge mobile transmission truck ignored the rain, scrambling through the pine boughs, setting up a coaxial cable and microwave tele for CBS to make live telecasts from the front Y*M. The media were settling in for a long stay. Stampede for the news at KPFA in Berkeley. By Patrick Murphy. Berkeley's new city manager, John Taylor, was all set to meet the press at the City Hall at 2100 Grove Street at 9:30 a.m. yesterday. Suddenly, the press bolted out the door. 4 minutes earlier the word had been flashed to the press room at the Berkeley Police Department that radio station KPFA had received a communication from the Symbionese Liberation Army about the kidnapping of Patricia Hearst. A television network reporter had been told there that Patricia's father, publisher Randolph A. Hearst, had told newsmen at his Hillsborough home that KPFA had just received a letter from the WSLA. The police department press room emptied within seconds for the 3-block sprint to the radio station at Alston Way and Shattuck Avenue. 63 reporters and cameramen gathered outside KPFA. They waited until about 10 a.m., when the station's news director, Paul Fisher, let them in. The contingent went up a narrow stairway to the second floor and crowded into a 12 by 12-foot studio to listen to the reading of the SLA's long statement, and a cassette containing a tape recording of Miss Hearst's voice. When a tape recording of her voice was heard, a forest of microphones reached up to a speaker high on the wall in a corner of the studio. There was a silent tension, broken only once, when. Then there were a few snickers. But generally there was only quiet activity, and the sounds were those of cameras whirring, and Fisher's voice. After about 50 minutes in the hot, crowded room, the message ended. About half the reporters left hurriedly, hunting for telephones. The others waited for the station to make a sufficient number of Xerox copies of the SLA's statement, and for the making of 3 copies of the tape recording. The 3 copies were given to ABC, NBC, and CBS. The networks later made their own copies for their affiliate stations, both radio and TV. The station also made other copies for the rest of the media. The complete SLA demands. This is the full text of the ransom letter received yesterday in the Patricia Hearst kidnapping. A. We have heard it said that Mr. Hearst wants to save his daughter. We want to save all the children and people. In an effort to answer some of the basic needs of the people, we are asking for a symbolic gesture of good faith from this representative of the corporate state. Each person with one of the following cards is to be given $70 worth of meats, vegetables, and dairy products. All people with welfare cards, Social Security pension cards, food stamp cards, disabled veteran cards, medical cards, parole or probation papers, and jail or bail release slip. So that all those with such cards have time, and will not be forced to stand waiting in long lines. The time for the distribution of this food must extend over a 4-week period, beginning February 19th. On each Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for 4 successive weeks, each person with one of the listed cards can go to publicized stores and pick up their food. Complete. 1. The stores where people can go are to be clearly designated and publicized in each of the communities listed below, and they are to be within easy access to the people of those communities. There must be at least 5 stores as distribution points within each community. These distribution points should be major stores within the community. We suggest such stores as Safeway and Mayfair. 2. The meat, vegetables, and dairy products must be of top quality, and in ample supply during all store hours. 3. To the people, if you are not receiving your food, all you have to do is voice your discontent in the streets, at bus stops, movie theaters, etc., and we will hear about it. Also, anyone facing any interference from the police state in the way of harassment should voice their discontent. The People's Army calls upon community groups such as Nairobi College in East Palo Alto, Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco, and the Black Teachers Caucus, the National Welfare Rights Organization, United Farm Workers, AIM, Third World Women * Alliance, United Prisoners Union, as well as representatives from People's News services such as Getting Together, Kalian, Triple Jeopardy, Black Panther Party, The Anvil, and others to act as observers and coordinators to see to it that the aged and disabled receive their food and ways to transport it and shop for it, and to see to it that no police state agents, in or out of uniform, are allowed to be in the areas of food distribution or photograph or harass the people. 4 stores in each of the following cities or communities are to serve as distribution points: San Francisco, Oakland, Richmond, East Palo Alto, Delano, Santa Rosa, Los Angeles. B. 1. The document showing the emblem and meaning of the 7-headed cobra that is in the possession of police state authorities shall be placed in newspapers and other forms of the media in its exact form, not omitting any area. 2. The document that is enclosed regarding the declaration of war and the goals of the SXA shall also be placed in its total form in newspapers and other forms of the media. 3. A copy of all these stated documents, along with a full copy of the tape enclosed recorded by myself and Pat Hearst, is to be distributed to the media for publication. 4. The news media is warned that all attempts to mislead the public concerning the intentions of the SLA, or to confuse the public by withholding or omitting sections of the tape of SLA documents, jeopardizes the prisoner. If this gesture of good faith is not met, then we will assume that there is no basis for negotiations, and we will no longer take and maintain in good health and spirits prisoners of war. Dear Jim, February 17, 74. In direct answer to your slaw question of 2/1/74, I era again in the position of siding with OK plus or minus ratlier than ancient Chinese subtleties which A might find exquisite and applicable to other situations. The simplification to which I reduce it can have several forms. The simplest he needs no warning like this. A variant is what I once heard Don Andrews say in trying to comfort a client, the don't hit by Western Union. However, your inference tli 3 group has conchino I buy, with little question. I did not follow the story entire stunted press, caught what I could not avoid in electronic reporting, which was nowhere than enough to make me wonder. My attention to TV can be cloyer because I do not general work at the desk to it. Instead I do such chores as wrap pot, cages. Often the radio goes while I do other tilings, hoping to have attention captured tie an item of particular interest. Vitae Axit claims Thin is a terrorist not a revolutionary group. Its words mean nothing oten there are acts for interpretation. But its words also can be analyzed, and this one leading tells me that it lies its own jargon that is plagiarized and a rhetoric that lacked reason or logic. It claims that Oliat is wit lie out verification can be verified and then this alleged verification is Faiza's bald allegation, no more. Boiber seeing any of this I was disturbed by though illursed kidnapping, per se and because if the overtones. Then the demands, which are clearly impossible and excessive enough to guarantee non-compliance, rid contrary to Faiza's representations, the innocent 3s the victim, not those to Olium guilt can be attributed. If they were sincere, why didn't they nab Hearst himself? S.J. Without doubt Faiza's representation opound her high school thoughts of and following January 22, 63 are genuine. Tli are also quite common. That they come to mind today can be as easily attributed to other things as to bummed-in feelings. *T is today commonly available, is Fifiton in the underground press and in some books. Ha/ever, her interpretation of the coup as to put Nixon in as dictator is both too cute wrong. IOW about, though man it did put in and his policies. Accidents can explain Nixon thereafter. Ha didn't he miss bitely at much is but one example. Or, she does not tell it a 3 it is. Not even in radical terms, where the difference tlv.t came with Nixon is at most in degree. If I had to give a single opinion it would be that in some way or through some means this group serves police interests. Fear of reaction may dominate the confused reaction of accepted radicals. TNE moving finger had not yet right as they have to see it. I think this I3 correct and requires caution. I am prejudiced in matters like this by a long abhorrence of violence by anyone for any political Roasenko Ray judgment may be biased. Earliest recollection of TL.E politici means of Oliach I approved is Carlson's account of how the Mao forces treated their Japanese and other prisoners. RT was nonviolent and it was political and it was constructive. So I am not impressed by the claims made for violent acts. Tli can be sincere and I might not credit them simply because I regard them as wrong. In the case of SLA, which seems to have sprung from nowhere, it can't be a large force and I do not regard the acts for which it claims responsibility as degree in any sense revolutionary. They are inevitably unproductive, even when they can be credited with a temporary accomplishment, and though one interest Tli are guaranteed to serve as justification for repression. You are correct in your comment on cyanide. I would add what the hell do they need it for and why the hell do they have it? To be sure that a missing bullet hitting the wrong target kills the innocent? Glad to have an insight. The letter did not attract my attention if the Post used it. Thanks, HW divided left questiono slaw. The Symbionese Liberation Army has created serious conflicts in the radical left. This was made evident in 3 letters received by the Chronicle yesterday. The let A included one purporting to be from SLA 1is defectors who said they NWS have split our anti-working class, ANTIJ revolutionary, anti-communist. If the SLA did not exist, the police would have to invent them. Objectively, the letter J from the former Viceremos people said, they are playing the role of provocateurs. The heart of the disagreement discussed in all three letters is the SLA's admitted responsibility for the murder of Oakland School Superintendent Marcus Foster last November 6. TG unsigned letter claiming Lou E from ex-members of the SL.A said the writers had joined the organization in August and l'infaculté found C entre of Lions in VDA. They had hoped would be a new and serious revolutionary organization that would replace the disarrayed elements of the new LJT. It quickly became apogee in L to us, the writers said. That the Symbionese Federation was not fundamentally opposed to the errors of the left we had known, but was rather the culmination of all its defects. The process of the organization was totally top-down. The War Council made decisions in secret and the members were expected to obey orders without question, just as in a capitalist army. The army * came to be seen as the chief agent of the revolution. We began to suspect that the War Council was manipulated either by some local right-wing organization or the CIA itself. The secret decision to kill Marcus Foster, and its execution, confirmed * our suspicions. Bernardine Dorn * a weather fugitive who is still sought by the FBI. Expressed support and recognition for the political effect of the SL.A is demanding for has received a threatening letter signed with the name used by a figure in the West Coast kidnapping of Patricia Hearst. The mimeographed letter, signed Field Marshal Sink, was received at Church's Boise office in a pre-cancelled envelope yesterday morning. Church's aides in Boise turned it over to the FBI, which said it was studying the letter for possible violations of federal law. Church's office said it doesn't know who sent the letter or whether the sender is involved in the kidnapping. Field Marshal Sink was the name used by the speaker on tape recordings addressed to publisher Randolph A. Hearst outlining the Symbionese Liberation Army's conditions for release of Miss Hearst, abducted in Berkeley, California, February 4. The document sent to Church makes no demands on the senator, who has been a strong backer of civil rights legislation throughout his Senate career. But it ends, "I am that nigger that hunts you now." It reads, "You should also demonstrate that you are not only concerned with freeing and making a better life for all people. However, you have seemingly said by your actions that you know me and therefore you do not have to repent for your crimes. However, to this I will say, you do indeed know me, you have always known me. I am that nigger you have hunted and feared night and day. I am that nigger you have killed hundreds of my people in a vain hope of. I am the nigger that is no longer just hunted, robbed, and murdered. I am that nigger that hunts you now." Field Marshal Sink. Over the weekend, 5 New England governors said they had received letters purportedly from the SLA. Those letters, like the one to Church, were similar to the last SLA communication to the Hearsts. In San Francisco yesterday, Miss Hearst's kidnappers ignored a weekend plea from her parents that their daughter be allowed to send a note or tape recording to them. March 6, 1974. Dear Harold, thanks for your letter of March 2, the one with the bad news about the plumbing. Hope it wasn't as bad as it seemed and that you now are again with water rather than without. I was particularly glad to have what appears to be your agreement with Widelouts about Noland. In the ST mailing we sent you a columnist's squib about a compiler of obits getting a reaction from Noland that was anything but suicidal. Regardless of the fact that BYCK's adventure at the Baltimore airport threatened no press figure, we are inclined to include both BYCK and the kids who landed the chopper on the WH lawn as parts of the same series along with St. Murphy, Noland, and now, March 6, the story in Today Chronicle from Akron, Ohio, about the threat to kidnap the son of the publisher of the Beacon Journal. If there is actually a pattern in all these things, it raises the questions of who is carrying on for the Lummers and their associates. Incidentally, we suggest that both BYCK and the Chopper lad exhibited behavior which fits the post-hypnotic suggestion pattern of Warhan and Brammer. Might think about it? We have the M-Times for the 28th, and the only thing in the Times about the RFK papers is a very short AP story from Waltham, Massachusetts, only 3 graphs long, which appears to tell nothing beyond the fact that some papers are being released. I'll copy it with the next lot of things to copy and send it along for the record. V/E are inclined to Tipithisla may be keeping silent re Miss Hearst for more than one reason, but mostly because they may think Hearst disobeyed their instructions. Remember that after he came up with the $2 million plan and they demanded *G $4 million more as a good faith gesture, they repeated their warnings to follow instructions to the letter. Well, Hearst replied that the $4 million was beyond him, and turned the matter over to the Hearst Corp., which said it would provide it if Attritia were released first. This put the Arsts in the position of telling the SLA what would and would not be done, and the SLA has done exactly what it said it would do in such case, broken off communications. In her last tape, Attritia specifically warned against stupid tricks and said the SLA would do exactly what it said it would. The Hearsts changed their line only after Kelly and Saxby came to LA, loudly proclaiming that the trip had nothing to do with the Hearst case, but which no one believes. Frankly, I cannot be surprised that the SLA is silent. Your mention of Stanford Research Institute in connection with GL's new tape expert and psychic research leads me to caution not to downgrade this psychic research thing. Actually, it's parapsychology, including telekinesis, telepathy and all such stuff. Sri is a big and prestigious outfit, as you don't know, which had to be separated from Stanford U at student and faculty demand because it was doing so much war-related research for the government. I have no doubt their parapsychological work is well funded through the type of foundations we all have come to know something about. The Russians appear to be well ahead of us in learning yet their is2l. via blood telekinesis and telepathy and possible military and space applications. Best, JDW. HW. Dusting off shrapnel without maximum embarrassment to the state prison authorities. Meanwhile, it's conceivable that the shrapnel thing could be used to establish some kind of a recognizable precedent in denying Nias, or that to Remiro and Little. You never know. JDWL Omar 74 Manson linked to Consul kidnapping. Associated Press. Los Angeles, a young woman and 2 jailed men were charged yesterday VRLTH plotting to kidnap a foreign consul general so he could bargain for the release of 2 men. One of the men is a convict skyjacker, and the woman was dentally lead by Pi, Lice as a former member of Light Charles Manson fatuity. TTTE FBI said its agents arrested Maria Teresa Alonso, 22, at her apartment. The 2 men, Gary E. 0.F.IB and Ropt RT Bernard Hedberg Jr. * 57. Are prisoners M. Los Angeles County Jail. TR and Nell serving * life sentence for Kajakai Igami Hedberg on charges of unlawful flight and assaulting a policeman. The 3W are accused of conspiring, while both men were jailed to kidnap a consul general. OT1 the follow tag countries: Estonia, Paraguay, UJ Ugshuf, Canada, France, Term of Switzerland or Haiti. FFP Director Clarence Kellef said Washuakshan the ISO plan to ask Lor 250.00Q and a guarantee of political asylum in Sweden. The 3 are to be arraigned tomorrow. A Los Angeles County Sheriff's spokesman said Miss Alonso was once * member of the Charles Manson family and had picketed frequently in support of Manson during his murder trial. Manson and 3 female followers were convicted in 1971 in the murders of actress Sharon Tate and 6 other persons. He demanded $308,000, the Rai.SEO prisoner being held in the Dallas jail, and the release of black militant Angela Davis, the FBI said. Trap NE2 was shot by an FBI agent in New York who posed as a crew member. He was in IHE Los Angeles jail awaiting action on a state charge. Hedberg, IHE FBI said, was being held following his arrest January 29 by local authorities on charges of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution for assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer. KPFA-FM, Berkeley, March 11, 197 carat. Evening News, 6:30 p.ra. This is Information Intelligence Unit 4. On Cart 9, 1974, this unit was directed to deliver a tape communique to the news media. Due to intelligence reports received by the Federation, in regards to FBI attempts to intercept and suppress any communications between the SLA and the people, a double decoy system was set up. One tape, with a gasoline-dreaded card, was sent to radio station KGIA*, and another tape, enclosed with an automobile credit card, was sent to KSAN. SE of Unit 4 notified KGIA first, of the location of this tape, which allowed one of two things to happen. Either KOIA, without telling the public of *, the Geerst family, turned it over to FBI, who in turn suppressed it, keeping it from the Hearst family and public. Or, the FBI intercepted it before KGIA got it and suppressed it from getting to the Hearst family and the public. In any event, this allowed the second tape to get through to KSAN because the FBI thought that the tape they had already intercepted was the only one sent out. We of Unit 4 are sending our copy of the tape because it is more audible. Please pass it along. Announcer, that was the latest communique from the Symbionese Liberation Army, received on Sunday, and, once again, it's different from the one received Saturday in two respects. It's much more audible, and, as you just heard there, it contained an explanation of why more than one copy of the tape was distributed. Asterisk from the accent, KDIA could easily have been pronounced as KGIA. No KGIA is listed in the Bay Area. Dear Jim, March 11, 74. The enclosures with your 3/6 here today look very interesting, so I must finish cleaning up after my clearing operations and get to spring work. This includes planting only at one could save of what the backhoe took up. I've done about fill the grading, IJO, the plumbing hurt. Without yet having built a now well pit, the cost is over $500, but we do have water, thank 3. The pattern U3 peak of is there. There is an additional pattern, one that repeats itself as T31 does. It could be part of the same. The real problem comes from the probability of the sick getting turned on. I've had a fair amount of experience with tills with people turned on by those assassinations who have been in touch with me. They are not uncommon. Allah 3 we now lis.vei trying 3 news people involved, none from liberal ownership or what the rational would call liberal policies. Of these the one where reasoning can be detected, rational reasoning, is the one where so many questions exist, no land. MO, for Hearst. Anything but liberal. 2. Fid's whole thing got a little more complicated for MO this AM when one heard the clear Pat hears T-tape. To believe, what she said is her own belief is to consider that she was part of the kidnapping. The believe that she said what she was told to say is not hard. Some of the kid 3 of the far right are in sometimes unrecognized protest. What they have been told is the way it is they can PT accept and they can't confront loving wrong parents. Aside as a sample, Judy, the sweet and pleasant young woman who is consolidating the index cards, appears to come from very conservative Pennsylvania Dutch stock. I have seen less of her lately because midterm work has been dumped on with vengeance. But she wanted to come and cook Nanutia for us, 30 this week. I got the makins and she did come yesterday. As I told you, though local formerly all-girls college went through I trying last Wednesday night, maybe 15/degree of them. Now this school was established for and caters to the conservative. I believe this I3 the largest percentage of any college Udo streak. XIU.3 is more exceptional because all were women with the possible exception of 2 men who could have been townies. Why among women's colleges, no report of which one ain't aware of any streaking where the liberals send their daughters. And why so large a percentage here? I load a notion that one of the other students I'd met went for it. I asked and Judy confirmed. DHE is the daughter of a real ultra. I'll see her soon and I'll ask motive. There may be none or none of kudu which she is aware. These kids are too bright to go for the rubbish that is the faith of their parents. Why not the Hituxed kid? Enid, I agree with your analysis of Borstian stupidity. I saw it the same stupid way when Pater stalked off TV to be followed by hireling. Tlias vio a foolish posturing that had to have unrecognized as having the potent Dalu outline. I see no need for this arrogant challenge. If here's T lacked the funds himself, he could have apsed off other funding as his, or he could have just ignored the difference. Or he could have made secret deals on funding. Whatever the answer, it represents the kind of trying jajig no sane kid could live with today. All of Tlias is further complicated by the special nerds of the spooks, who are in very serious trouble is a single major element of the media or a single articulate legislator sounds off, and by the urgencies of the dangerously sick GL. If the Congress and the media or even either did try, possible hex is done save for a coup. Heels within, best further 3/L1/73 comment on your 3/6 Rike Arst, * Patricia's fiancé speaks out by Beverly Stephen Week. The fiancé OT kidnapped new paper bearers Patricia Hearst, held a brief press conference yesterday to tell Patty she has not been forgotten. Weed spoke to reporters from the RST home in Hillsborough in response to Miss Hearst's weekend plea to hear from him. Weed, a 26-year-old philosophy graduate student at the University of California, Berkeley, was beaten by Symbionese Liberation Army members early and they abducted Miss Hearst from his Berkeley apartment February 4. We certainly haven't forgotten her, Weed said. I can see why she might be irritated. It might appear we are not doing all we can do. In her taped message received Saturday, Miss Herod called on Weed to a peak, Steve what do you have to DKY? Where are the men who really care? Aboift back page col3 Stephen Weed he explained silence sf cron as 74 from page t what happens to me, *h*. th 2 weeks of silence our part was very unpleasant. Weed said yesterday. We really didn't know what to say or do at that time. We thought the food program was going to work out, but now apparently it wasn't what was wanted. Weed soundly dismissed any notion that Miss Hearst more kidnap news on page 5 might be involved in her PWN kidnapping. We've been together constantly the last 4 years. We know exactly what each of us do AMD think. Previous to the last 2 months, she really didn't have a political point of view. Weed said. Referring to her late message, he said, it *s dear that she's reading something. The rhetoric isn't hers. But a good part of it is what she sincerely feels. She may actually have her doubts. From her point of view it may look like we've made a mess. Weed, Ho was wearing white jeans and a crew neck sweater, teapot calmly and somewhat reluctantly. His voice betrayed no emotion, but he said that he had a lot of respect for Pally, even more than before. When he was asked *LF the kidnapping would affect their relationship, he said if tilings come to a happy conclusion in a reasonable length of time. I don't think there will be that much problem. Weed repeated his Prom 190, made in his first news conference over a month ago, that he would not testify against any SLA members. And I think I can make that promise for Patty too, he added. In an interview last night on KQED TV, Weed said he felt Patty believes to a degree that the FBI would like to kill her, an opinion she expressed on the latest tape. However, Weed added, the let imant lon ally I real to believe wham Patty to die. Went on to describe Sessions BTW'en Charles Bates, special FBI agent in charge, and the Hearst family as almost comical. Mr. Bates comes in and sits down, and Hearst poured a drink, Weed said, and Mr. Hearst and Mrs. Hearst and whoever wants to be there just sits down and chats. The comical parts about it is how adept Mr. Bates is at not telling us anything, while conceding the family knows more about the case than has been publicly released. Weed emphasized that it was an Antitni in Bolivia. Tanya, according to published reports, was a Soviet agent who fell in love with Che and who inadvertently caused his downfall by driving two journalists to Che's hideout, leaving a trail for government troops. It was the stridence of Patricia's speech that seemed unreal to people familiar with her style. She is known as a strong-willed individual with liberal ideas, but by no means a person attuned to the concept of violent change. She is known also as neither naive, malleable, nor highly impressionable. Her mother today described her thus: until the day of her capture, Patty was a young lady of great assurance who was content with the direction she was going. Only a few months ago she was happily planning her wedding and a career in the field of art history. Before Christmas we went to a local store, and she was terribly excited as she selected the china for her home. Stephen Weed, while acknowledging that Patty must have matured a great deal in the last 2 months, added, "For me to accept what happened today in the manner it has been given to me would be to sell her out." Asked if Miss Hearst might have been brainwashed, Richard Lazarus, professor of psychology at the University of California at Berkeley, AP expert on the effects of stress, said, "There has been a lot of skepticism among social psychologists specializing in attitudinal change of the capacity to brainwash people * even under fairly severe conditions." Lazarus added, "I don't think she could have been pushed in the direction of slaw ideology if she hadn't been somehow predisposed toward it in the first place. The power to force people over to your way of thinking seems to be much less than is usually presumed. We can't rule out brainwashing, but I'm skeptical." Special correspondent Robert Joffe assisted the preparation of this story. Dear Jim, your TMO3T recent *r/slaw comment, buried in a stack, is quite impressive inkping into what didn't become news until after it arrived. We seem to have understood the possibilities in this fairly well. I have not followed it closely. There are a couple of minutes before I have something wise to do, and I'd like to add an observation about Pat's voice on the *OI*KGNE, to hurrah tape. It was quite differently, and though others, not at all inspired, no reflection in tone of revolutionary zeal, of an enthusiasm, and I would say flat and listless compared to what I'd heard earlier. Under any circumstances, I think the way she used liar to her father was not her whole duel toward the end was too pat to suit me. Because I have not followed closely, I'm sorry what, not important, just curious, to know if there was anything in Tide last tape that would tend to date it. Old it have been Kate earlier than the next to the last? Perlapa, there is also something on which I can't put my mind's finger, but it didn't seem kosher even though Woe had anticipated tly possibility. ILW April 5, 74 San Francisco, April 5 the FBI considered giving members of the Symbionese Liberation Army 48 hours getaway time if it agreed to release Patricia Hearst, a San Francisco attorney disclosed today. Vincent Hallinan, a lawyer long associated with left-wing causes, told the Washington Post he participated in a day-long conference nearly 2 weeks ago at which the strategy was discussed. The meeting took place March 30 at Vacaville Prison, some 45 miles east of San Francisco, where Clifford Jefferson, an East Law sympathizer, is serving a life term. Present besides Jefferson were Hallinan, Randolph Hearst, Patricia's father, Charles Bates, FBI agent in charge of the San Francisco region, Raymond Percunier, director of the California Department of Corrections, and the Rev. Cecil Williams P.F. San Francisco's Glide Memorial Church. Jefferson asked for the meeting, which resulted in a letter to the SLA signed by Jefferson and 2 other inmates urging it to begin negotiations with Hearst for the release of Patricia. The SLA is believed to have been spawned at Vacaville through a prisoner's self-help organization. In the course of the discussions, Hallinan recalled today, I got the FBI to agree they would allow 48 hours after the used for food donations to the poor PNCE Miss Hearst is released. Bates, the local FBI chief, conceded that various options, including a lead time offer, were discussed at the Vacaville meeting. But he insisted, I gave no assurance. This was a bull session. A decision like that would have to be made somewhere else. We would have to hear first what the SLA wants, to give up Patty. Then, it would have to be run past the FBI, the local police, the DA's office and the whole gamut of authorities. It had long been rumored that Randolph Hearst would be agreeable to an arrangement that would give the slaw an escape route in return for his daughter. But until now it was not known that the FBI was considering such a course. Bates said he is assuming that Patricia is still alive. Asked if the FBI knows where she is, he replied, "Not at this moment." "Did you ever know?" Bates was pressed. "I'm not going to comment. To telescope what I know and get her killed is the last thing I'm going to do." The atmosphere of uncertainty, intensified by Miss Hearst's strident taped pledge of allegiance to the slaw delivered 2 days ago, continued to stir debate. The Hearst family insists the message did not reflect Patricia's real state of mind. In an effort to reopen a dialogue with the slaw, the fam-associated PRWJ Charles Bates, San Francisco FBI chief, says search for kidnapped Patricia Hearst will continue. It is possible Miss Hearst was brainwashed and may believe her decision was made of her own free will. Dr. Frederick J. Hacker, a professor of psychology at both the medical and law schools of the University of Southern California, said, "There are brainwashing techniques and persuasion techniques that are effective at not only changing a person's mind but imparting to the victim the impression that he changed his mind voluntarily. The most dangerous thing about coercion is it can convince the coerced that it was voluntary." Dear Harold, in a mailing earlier today I was unable to include thanks for sending us the printed reports on the WG break-in JGRA and to ask you to refresh our memory as to where these were published. I assume in the hearings on Gray's confirmation, but cannot recall it clearly and therefore ask you once again instead of starting a long search through the files. Also I wanted to add a few words on the Hearst case. By now you've seen the April 15th issue of Time, which has a good black and white reproduction of the Polaroid color shot of her holding the gun. We picked up this issue because the Time version is much clearer than the one printed here by the Chronicle, which was so badly printed that it gave me much the S-pound-on impression of phoniness, as the one life used of Oswald Witten turned out to have been a paste-up job, probably by the FBI. The Time version lessens that feeling, but not entirely. She still looks profoundly unhappy, and there is still something unreal about the body balance or something of that nature. On the whole, I don't think the slaw could have faked it, and it stands to reason that they would have to use Polaroid for color unless one of them has access to a color processing lab where ordinary color film could be developed and printed. We agree with AU that her voice in the last tape does sound flat commy-ard with earlier versions, but she also looks much older in the picture, and both these things suggest something which no one seems to have considered, that she already was doubting when she was captured and that she may actually have come to believe much of what she now says, not through the rather strenuous process of brainwashing, but simply because she's still very young and inexperienced and has less basis for mature judgment than someone reared in a different environment. He was nothing in the last tape to date it as you surmise. As you probably know, her parents have gone to Mexico, which brings up something else. From the beginning of the John Patterson case at Hermosillo, there were enough superficial *parallels with Felheu, St case, plus some quite pesulage for Fito res of the Patterson kidnapping itself, to make us worry if there could be any connection with the Hearst case. The movement of the Hearsts to Mexico strengthens such a possibility, but both situations are so unclear that there is yet no indication as to where a deal, if one is cooking, could have originated. We've explored some possibilities, but without enough success to feel it worthwhile noting them. In any *ase, I thought I'd mention it. The way Saxby continues to sound off suggests pressure on the slaw, but with that guy it's difficult to tell. This acknowledges mailings of March 29, Peril 1, 2, 3 and 6. Many thanks for many interesting enclosures. Best *JDW Dear Jim, things accumulate more when there are extra problems, such a 3 the newest but insanity # I am getting up even earlier to try to clean up before trip tomorrow an. I've been wanting to spend some time on your provocative and informative 3/28 on JCOSI slaw. The story of the Harrises in particular is in Terry's tin. There are always people like these showing up and doing things and leaving the question, are they loners who are true believers or do they serve sinister forces? That is not in question, as you note, is the effect, and the cumulative ft.lt does have a demoralizing effect, too, and CNA nakaxith unacceptable more acceptable. One problem is that this does not mean that the beneficiary is the principal. The kinds of things you note are perfect duplications of those the labor spy detective agencies used to do. Typical Sjaney pattern. Meanwhile, I am certain that the great increase in the crime rate required all police to get themselves more informers, which also means that with or without intent, a trained cadre of provocateurs gradually increases and comes to enjoy the storybook excitement and the extra income. HW April 9, 74. Dear Jim, those two Dre items were, incredibly, published in the confirmation hearings and have been entirely ignored in all the quest for explanations of the 6/20th's memory Holinko. I have been trying to find some way of exploiting where it does not still again / giving stuff away. I have and in the book, that part written so long ago. Need you know more than what Thaso 2 copies soy to know all necessary about the Koks-Jaworski operation? Or the media? Patty as Dragon Lady, by coincidence the only thing I have read in Time 4/15, which I clipped early this .rot is that story. And I also found Nepelf pondering that picture for the same reason. The newspaper version with their coarser screen were not as clear. I did not figure it was a pasted up job, but her face and artificial stance took my eye. Her expression is singularly joyless, except for the eyes, which can be interpreted as signifying what the tape alleges. While I recall no divergence in other pictures, in this one her left eye does seem to cast out, not AC severely as mine but like it. Sort of schizo effect. It also seems to be open wider, with each eye raking different suggestions. I don't know enough about this case to form any kind of certain beliefs, but I was taken when Pater said all today *s kids are liberals, as I believe I noted at the time. I don't recall the Patterson case. And it has been a long time since I packed a submachine gun. But I don't think anyone ever braced against a LRLCK side to size. Door is her 8 no the customary crouch. Weapons kick backward or upward. Saxby, maybe he intends pressure on Slaw, but I think Ho has no nork sense than he displays. With all the charges that can November be laid on SJLA, there seems to be no real need for pressure. Given what he is, as you say, difficult to tell motive. Bo ua re that what I've sent explains 6/20th's mysteries and what has ensued, that it is most basic? Wonder if any posters working on good stories during strike. Best, HW April 13, 74. Strange message from Patty. The Polaroid color photograph might have been the cover of a paperback thriller or a recruiting poster for the revolutionary left, but the comely, wholesome-looking girl holding a submachine gun was Patricia Hearst, and an accompanying tape recording of her voice carried a bizarre message. Patty, 20, had decided to forsake her millionaire parents and join the fanatics who kidnapped her 2 months ago. I have been given the choice of being released in a safe area, or joining the forces of the Symbionese Liberation Army and fighting for my freedom and the freedom of all oppressed people **. Patty announced. Have chosen to stay and fight. Patty's statement came just when the bewildering series of events surrounding her abduction in Berkeley, California, seemed to be moving toward a happy conclusion. At the direction of the SLA, the Hearst family and the Hearst Foundation had given $2 million worth of food to the needy in the San Francisco Bay Area. To demonstrate his seriousness, Hearst early last week persuaded the Hearst Corp., which controls 8 newspapers and 11 magazines, to put an additional $4 million into an escrow account, where it was to be held for ESLA until his daughter's release. Within hours, there was encouraging news. The SX.A. announced that the time and place of Patty's release would be disclosed in the next 3 days. The Hearsts were elated. "We believe that the communication is genuine," said Hearst. The blow came the next day, the release to a radio station of Patty's picture and her belligerent tape recording. Stunned parents. There was a hard edge to Patty's voice as she declared, "Tad, you said that you were concerned with my life, and you also said you were concerned with the life and interests of all oppressed people in this country. But you are a liar in both areas, and I know for sure that your and Mom's interests are never the interests of the people." Attacking white society, she said that she had learned how vicious the pig really is. She added, "Our comrades are teaching me to attack with even greater viciousness, in the knowledge that the people will win." Though Patty insisted on the tape that she had not been brainwashed, drugged, tortured, hypnotized or in any way confused, her stunned parents refused to believe that she had not been coerced into siding with the SLA. Nor would they believe that their daughter, who had been genuinely close to them both, could intentionally cause them such grief, said Mrs. Hurst. "Only Patty in person can convince me that the terrible, weary words that she uttered came from her heart and were delivered by her own free will." Hurst added that he had assumed that the SLA had been going to release his daughter, as promised. Said he, "I've guessed wrong on the SLA all along. I think they're just cruel people. Why did Patty make the tape?" The most pessimistic view was bluntly voiced by Vincent Hallinan, a 77-year-old San Francisco lawyer for the Hursts, who said that he feared the kidnappers had forced the girl to deliver the statement, then killed her and fled, releasing the tape as a diversion. On the other hand, the girl could conceivably have spoken out because of fear, or to buy time, or to convince the terrorists that she had joined them so that she could later break free. No one who knew Patty well thought she had become a dedicated revolutionary of her own free will in just 60 days of captivity. She was hardly a radical. Only a few weeks before the kidnapping, she had been happily picking out China in anticipation of her marriage to Stephen Weed, 26, a graduate student at the University of California at Berkeley. But Dr. Frederick J. Hacker, a psychiatrist and expert on terrorism consulted by the Hursts, does not discount the possibility that she made the tape voluntarily. He theorizes that the enormous psychological pressures of living in danger for such a length of time could have induced Patty to change her opinions, at least temporarily. "Until we have full disclosure of what happened," Dr. Hacker said, "I would urge that the community look at this with a great deal of caution and charity." Both the police and the FBI were proceeding on the assumption that PKTTY was still alive and being held against her will. One aspect of the case that they were looking into was whether there was any connection between the S.LA and the random street killings of 12 whites in San Francisco during the past 5 months. So far they have apparently found no link, though the FBI has identified most of the SLA members who took part in the kidnapping. In one of their periodic taped messages, the abductors complained that the FBI was so close to them that they couldn't breathe. That is true. At one time or other, the ANTS have been just hours behind the kidnappers. FBI agents think that the SX.A spokesman, who calls himself General Field Marshal Sink * may be only a front man used to divert attention from the Cotters' real leaders, who may include Mrs. Nancy Ling Perry, 26, and other radical white women. Mrs. Perry is the daughter of a Santa Rosa, California, furniture dealer and a graduate of Berkeley, the same school that Patty was attending when she was seized. Until last fall, Mrs. Perry was living with Joseph Remiro, 27, and Russell Jack Little, 24, 2 white SLA members who have been charged with the lawing last November of Dr. Marcus A. Foster, a black who was Oakland's superintendent of schools. Shot on sight. Sink is believed to be an escaped black convict named Donald D. DeFries. The theory that DeFries is not the true leader of the SX.A is supported by a man with a rare personal knowledge of the man and the organization. Colston Westbrook, 36, a black instructor in linguistics at Berkeley, met DeFries while visiting California's Vacaville prison to take part in the activities of the Black Cultural Association. The SLA partly evolved from the group. Westbrook recalls DeFries as a cat submerged in divine blackness and interested in black problems. But now, Westbrook says, "I think the honkies are calling the shots. He'd better wake up." Westbrook made his comments to Time correspondent Joseph N. Boyce, who found the linguist living in a small apartment house near the Berkeley campus. The drapes were drawn, the door was double-latched, and on the kitchen table was an electronic device that Westbrook said could be used to alert the police. Westbrook had good reason to be holed up. On the same tape with Patty Hearst's latest message was a warning from Sync that the S.LA had named 3 persons to be shot on sight as enemies of the people. One of the 3 S.UT enemy Westbrook was Westbrook. The other 2, Robin Steiner, a white girl who used to live with the S.LA's Roos U. Little, and Chris Thompson, a black resident of Berkeley, who knew several members of the SX.A. but denies ever having joined. Westbrook felt that he was marked for execution because I'm a threat in general to the SX.A. I know quite a bit about them. I can analyze their moods and see through them. He admitted that he had detailed information about the S.LA. and that he had talked about the organization to the Oakland police and the FBI. As the tense week drew to a close, the Hearsts were left to ponder the implications of some final words from Sync's taped message. There is no further need, Sync said, to discuss the release of the prisoner since the prisoner is now a comrade and fighter for the people's freedom. Therefore there is no further basis for negotiation since the subject may leave whenever she feels that she wishes to do so. This operation is hereby terminated. KPFAFP Berkeley 6:30 p.m. News 16 Ajberpl 1974 Announcer, a representative of the Citizens Research and Investigations Committee based in Los Angeles charged today that NOLA's action against the Panthers is at least in part a response to allegations by CRIC and the Panther newspaper that there are connections between one of the founders of the Symbionese Liberation Army and California law enforcement agencies and officials. The man making these charges is one Nald Fried of Sile C. Fried. In the light of what is happening in California, we have to prematurely release the following information. Funeral David DeFries, known as Sync, the general of the Symbionese Liberation Army, is a longtime police agent to #for the criminal conspiracy. Section of the Los Angeles Police Department, the Special Intelligence Unit organized by then District Attorney Svel J. Younger. Svel J. Younger, as Attorney General of California, maintained his hold over the criminal conspiracy section, and was continued to follow the progress HJCXS both outside and in jail of his former agent, Ronald David DeFries. The attack on the Black Panther Party today, the timing of which reveals that the fear of the Adult Authority and the Attorney General's Office of the State of California, and the Governor of California, the fear that the police connections, law enforcement connections, Ronald David DeFries will now emerge in the fast-developing events. Have from official sources. Everything one have said comes from official sources, XX including the fact that the file of Nanad Avi DeFries is now missing from Sacramento, and together with the file of the 2 men called the J. Tyner brothers, former members of the Cultural Nationalists UD organization, that escaped from prison within the last month. The files for Stoiza. These 3 men are now under lock and key in the watch commander's safe of the Los Angeles Police Department's Intelligence Division. Thus files are missing and are illegally now being hidden and suppressed in the watch commander's safe of the Los Angeles Police Department Intelligence Division that comes from official police sources to the Citizens Research and Investigations Committee. The obstruction of justice that is clear here, on the part of Attorney General Younger, was a clear tip-off that the Panthers and others would now be set up to blame for the JLA. The reason that there has been no statement from Younger or P. Egan during all these weeks is that they watched with apprehension the activities of their agent. There will be more information tomorrow. This is all that can be given now and given hastily. I repeat, they are all official. Arsti announced. We asked P. Reed if he could substantiate any of his charges that Donald DeFries, or Sync, has worked as a police agent. 7 Reese, the state of New Jersey attempted to extradite Donald Reese from California in I.967, 68, and 69 and 1.970. Che state of California refused to extradite Freese to New Jersey for the following reason. He was an important penetration agent for the criminal conspiracy section under Evel Aunger in Los Angeles. 2. The charge he was wanted on in New Jersey would have taken him permanently out of circulation. The charges were kidnapping and attempted homicide. Therefore, the presence of Donald Dupree's on the streets of California, in the Vacaville and prison system of California, and finally in the affair involving Patricia Hearst and the assassination of Dr. Poster in Oakland. These events relate to Svel Lounger's intervention in being responsible for the state of California refusing to extradite a man identified by one of Younger's assistants. We have the documentation on this statements, that this man was a homicidal maniac and would kill a number of people. Still, beyond that, Younger kept this man working because of the hysterical need felt by law enforcement for agents in the black community. Therefore, the man who was charged with kidnapping and murder in New Jersey, was protected by California and its chief law enforcement official, Everly J. Younger, and therefore they bear responsibility for what has happened in the Hearst affair, in the Foster affair, in the bank robbery, and in whatever violence may be yet to come. Had it not been for the active intervention of Younger, then the state of California would automatically have given up a man with a long prison record, a long record of violence and mental instability to the state of New Jersey. Announcer, that was Donald Friedlander, speaking for the Citizens Search and Investigation Committee of Los Angeles. State Attorney General Younger could not be reached today for comment on these allegations. JDWLAPR 74 Don Fried, who claims to have been working on or to have been in some kind of contact with the SLA, said yesterday that Kank has been identified as a dangerous psychopath, perhaps a man charged with or known to have committed murder, by the New Jersey police. There was road noise as we were driving and I did not get the exact words, although the meaning was clear enough, so I didn't ask him to repeat. There was the import that he and whoever his associates on this may be do not regard SLA as revolutionary, if not the implication that they have suspicions about who the SLA people are and serve. HW April 16, 74 U.S. Attorney doesn't believe she was coerced. Saxby calls Patty criminal. 9 Bernard Hurwitz and Poctated Press San Francisco, April 17. Attorney General William B. Saxby branded Patriella Hearst a common criminal today, and a federal grand jury began considering whether she willingly wielded a gun in a terrorist bank robbery. Saxby said in Washington that he was convinced the 20-year-old newspaper heiress was not a reluctant participant in the $10,000 robbery Monday by a heavily armed gang which wounded 2 persons in its getaway. The terrorist Symbionese Liberation Army dragged Miss Hearst's aiming from her Berkeley apartment 21% ago. In communique April 3, she renounced her family and swore she had been converted to become a revolutionary fighter. It would appear to me that she was not a reluctant Patricia Hearst. Sought as witness participant in this robbery, Saxby told his weekly news conference, adding that SLA are EMN criminals. Asked if he included Miss Hearst, members, he said, Miss Hearst is a part of it. Miss Hearst's newspaper executive Randolph A. Hearst, called Saxby's comments speculatlon and refused further comment. Charles Bates, the FBI agent in charge of the case, also refused comment other than to say, the FBI is continuing its aggressive investigation looking to a solution of the Hearst kidnapping case and the bank robbery. James Browning said that evidence in the bank robbery is being presented to a grand jury and that indictments are possible by next week. It is entirely possible that the evidence will show that there was no duress or coercion on the part of these people, but that is a matter for the grand jury to determine, he said. According to a guard at C. Hearst, A4, COL, for conclusion that she willingly joined in the robbery, the Attorney General replied, based on the activities of the other people involved and the observations of witnesses in the bank and the photographs, my personal conclusion is that she was not a reluctant participant. There's room for others to say she was coerced into it, or suggest that there were 2 guns that were pointed at her and no one. In another development today, 4 other alleged SLA members were named in perjury warrants for making false statements to obtain driver's licenses. Alameda County District Attorney Lowell Jensen said the 4 are linked to the bank robbery, the Hearst kidnapping and the November 6 murder of Oakland school supt. Marcus Foster, for which the SLA claimed responsibility. Named in the state arrest orders are, Willem Taylor Harris, 27, Emily Montague Harris, 27, Angela Atwood, 25, and William Lawton Wolf, 23. California Attorney General Evelyn Younger sailed today in Sacramento that the false driver's licenses apparently were used to cash checks and other purposes. Younger also said that the danger to Miss Hurst's life from the slaw apparently has lessened. I think the evidence is quite clear that she probably isn't in as much danger from those who participated in this robbery as she may have been at one time, he said. Saxby says Patty wasn't coerced. Hurst, from A1 The Bank, Edward Shea. Miss Hurst took an active part in the robbery giving plus orders and OLL that, saying she would shoot the first guy that moved. She wasn't seared. She let it be known that she meant business, the 66-year-old guard said today. She had a gun and looked ready to use it. Bates said 100 to 125 federal agents are working on the case and again said he does not know the location of the slaw hideout. Police say the slaw is a heavily armed, multiracial group of about 25 men and women. Bank cameras photographed Miss Hurst along with 3 other white women and a black man during the robbery of a Hibernia bank. The photographs showed Miss Hurst and 2 other members of the robbery team holding weapons. Federal bank robbery warrants have been issued for the 3 women and the man, and Miss Hurst is sought for arrest as a material witness. Bail was net at $500,000 each. The massive search for the gang of 9 men and women centered in San Francisco because of reports that slaw members had been spotted here, Saxby said. Saxby also said that he doesn't know whether Miss Hurst was the victim of an authentic kidnapping. Asked whether authorities now consider her a kidnap victim or a bank robber, Saxby replied, "The answer is both." Asked for the basis of his Saxby comments. Stir ire of FBI. By Robert Grunberg. Chicago Daily News. No responsible FBI official would speak up openly to say he wished the top boss, Attorney General William B. Saxby, would keep his mouth shut. But in various other ways it was made plain. It was apparent in the official statements issued in the name of FBI Director Clarence Kelly. The statements said the FBI would continue to pursue the kidnapping of Patricia Hearst and her part in the $10,000 robbery Monday of a San Francisco bank in its own way. It was also apparent in their significant silences when Kelly's spokesmen were asked whether Saxby's pronouncements were helping or hindering the investigation. "I wouldn't address myself to that at all," said one of Kelly's aides. Saxby stunned the FBI, and a number of his Justice Department colleagues, when he said Wednesday that Miss Hurst was not a reluctant participant in the bank robbery by her Symbionese Liberation Army kidnappers. "The slaw is a group of common criminals," said Saxby, and he described Miss Hurst as a part of them. Saxby also cast open doubt on whether she was legitimately kidnapped. When asked, he replied, "I have no way of knowing that." Saxby's statements contradicted those by San Francisco U.S. Attorney James Browning and FBI Special Agent Charles Bates, who have said there was evidence Miss Hurst took part in the heist under duress. Meanwhile, Chesterfield H. Smith, president of the American Bar Association, also said Saxby ordered to develop all the facts concerning both offenses, and identify all the individuals involved. Based on the findings, he added, the evidence will be presented to the U.S. Attorney to determine whether additional warrants should be obtained. If the FBI had thought as does Saxby that Miss Hurst was a willing participant, a warrant would have been obtained against her, was the clear implication from the spokesman's words. Lashed out yesterday at Saxby's comments about Miss Hurst, "It's unethical for a prosecuting officer to comment on the guilt or innocence of anybody, or to in any way interfere with the process of a fair trial," Smith told the Women's National Democratic Club. He shouldn't have even gone so far as to label the others in the slaw as common criminals. He said many lawyers had been complaining about Saxby's comments. The Wednesday remark was not the first time Saxby's shoot from the hip declarations had unsettled the principals in California. A notable one took place February 14, 9 days after Miss Hurst was kidnapped. Saxby said police would be guilty of dereliction of duty if they know where Miss Hurst was being held by the SLA and failed to go get her. As for the SLA demand that Randolph A. Hearst, Miss Hurst's father, supply $70 million worth of food to California's needy. Saxby declared, "I certainly wouldn't recommend compliance with such vague and unrealistic demands. Each time, the FBI just gritted its teeth and plowed on, with declarations by Bates that he would do his best to solve the kidnapping and bring Miss Hurst back safely, and explanatory statements by Saxby aides that the Attorney General meant no harm to Miss Hurst. This time Bates, who has between 100 and 125 agents working around the clock on the case, was apparently so enraged that he opted to do nothing but read a short, cold statement to reporters that referred to himself in the third person. Let me read you this, fellows, and take it down. Charlie Bates, special agent in charge, feels he has no comment to make. Period. I'd like you to send that out, because I've got thousands of calls in here from all over the country." Bates also called his Washington headquarters. What he said to hire UPS was not disclosed. But a spokesman for FBI Chief Kelly, after emphasizing that Saxby's remarks were his own, as Saxby himself said, asserted, "We are continuing to actively investigate the kidnapping and bank robbery in order to develop all the facts concerning both offenses, and identify all the individuals involved. Based on the findings," he added, "the evidence will be presented to the U.S. Attorney to determine whether additional warrants should be obtained." The FBI had thought, as does Saxby, that Miss Hurst was a willing participant. A warrant would have been obtained against her, was the clear implication from the spokesman's words. Police kept SLA data from FBI. Los Angeles Times. San Francisco, April 19. A Symbionese Liberation Army notebook referring to Patricia Hearst and obtained by police 3 weeks prior to her kidnapping was not called to FBI attention until well after her abduction, it was disclosed today. "I was not aware of any of the information prior to the Hearst kidnapping," FBI Special Agent in Charge Charles W. Bates told reporters. Revelation of an apparent lack of coordination between the FBI and one or more East Bay Area police departments followed a San Francisco Chronicle story that the notebook was among documents confiscated from a Concord house partially burned in an arson attempt January 10. Bates said the pre-kidnap aspects of the SLA case had been handled by the Oakland and Concord police departments. There was no immediate comment from Oakland Police or the Alameda County District Attorney, but Concord Police Chief James L. Chambers quickly denied his department was involved. Chambers said the Concord house, an alleged SLA headquarters, was in unincorporated Contra Costa County territory rather than in Concord proper, so the sheriff's office took over investigation of the fire. He said he understood all evidence found in the home at notebook and other documents reportedly bearing names of businessmen and others as potential kidnap targets was turned over to Oakland police. That was because SLA. C. Hearst, A4, Colonel 2. But it's possible they had reams of material to go. With a mass of stuff to go through, it's possible this green book didn't come up until it was too late. The FBI declined to discuss. Aunt Marcus Foster. Later, local and federal law enforcement authorities is daughter of Campbell. The Chronicle said the note. At UC. Junior. Art student teams, guns, action. Patricia Hearst was in no way a conspirator in her own kidnapping, but was marked as a potential victim. Happened February 4. Asked whether he shared Hearst's feeling, Bates said, among alleged SLA MEM bank robbery in which Patricia not as Camilla Hall, 4. Minneapolis welfare. That was 3 days after Patricia was dragged scream of the notebook Thursday night when newsmen called for reaction. In a written statement today, he said he called the FBI, which told him the book was seized January 11 after fire broke out at a Concord, California, House police believe was in SLA headquarters. If they knew her name was in the book and knew it was. Police had data on Hearst kidnap. Hearst, from A1 members Joseph Remiro and through before they got to Russell Little, had been captured in a police shootout just prior to the SLA House fire and were being held as suspects in the assassination of Oakland school superintendent. Details of the notebook's contents. But the Chronicle quoted unnamed investigators as saying the references to missued a joint statement in which they said some parts of Hearst included. The Chronicle's story should be put in context. We will make no further Hearst comment with reference to this matter at the present time, said the statement, which was signed by Bates, Berkeley, and Hearst, on the night of the Concord police officials and full moon of January 7. District attorneys from Contra Costa and Slamada Alameda book also mentioned the counties. We will do so only names Yolanda and Camilla when we are satisfied that Fur and David and Margarita their comment will not jeopardize the pending cases and bears sought for the Monday investigation. To Randolph A. Hearst, the notebook finally called to his 5-participant whether willingly attention by a Chronicle reporter was unquestionable proof that his daughter was worker. According to Bates, the notebook was not given to the FBI until after the SLA's first by the SLA weeks before it. A communique claiming responsibility for the abduction was received by a Berkeley radio station. Won't know until I talk to the people who wrote her name in there. Hearst said he first learned into the night not to be seen publicly again until last Monday in the San Francisco bank robbery. Patty Hearst's case. Victim or accomplice? By Robert Joffe. Decile to the Washington Post. San Francisco, April 20. Is Patricia Hearst somehow in league with her Symbionese Liberation kidnappers? For weeks, that question was the subject of only timid speculation. On April 3, however, it started to become the focus of a national debate, and last Wednesday it was presented to a federal grand jury. It was on April 3 that the 20-year-old newspaper heiress announced in a tape.re. Cord communique that she was now Tanya, and that she had chosen to stay and fight with the clandestine terrorist group which 2 months earlier had dragged her screaming from her Berkeley apartment. Then, 12 days later, in a move apparently designed to substantiate her deal, Zion, Miss Hearst was photographed carrying a semi-automatic carbine in an SLA bank robbery here. The FBI obtained a warrant for her arrest as a material witness, and bail was set at $500,000. The grand jury was asked to decide whether Miss Hearst was indeed a willing participant in the robbery. U.S. Attorney James L. Browning Jr. conceded that it is clear from the photographs she may have been acting under duress. Still, he said, if the jury finds that her participation was voluntary, we're going to charge her as a bank robber. The question was now so clear that it even appeared as a front-page headline in the San Francisco Examiner, a newspaper of which her father, Randolph, is both editor and president. Did business, the Examiner asked, or was she playing role? There have been reports that until only recently the FBI suspected Miss Hearst C. Hearst, A10, Cell 1. Mean. Hearst, from Al, or her finance, Stephen Weed, might have had something to do with plans for Burr abduction. Close friends of the couple have found such suspicions absurd, and Weed may have finally put them to rest when he took an FBI lie detector test same 2 weeks ago. Randolph Hearst said an SLA notebook seized at an abandoned headquarters 3 weeks before the kidnapping questionable proof that HDE daughter was an SLA target, and in no way a participant in her own kidnapping. The notebook, the existence of which was discovered by the San Francisco Chronicle, included Miss Hearst's full name, along with elliptic references to action, teams and guns on the night of the full moon of January 7. Authorities have declined comment on the Chronicle report, except to say that it was not totally accurate. In any case, it now seems unlikely that Weed or Miss Hearst was involved with the SLA before her kidnapping. What remains mysterious is the evolution of a revolutionary Tanta who would renounce her parents and finance, to voluntarily join a murdering, bank-robbing group of revolutionary terrorists. There are 3 prevalent theories: Tanya, conversion, brainwashing, and play acting at the point of a gun. Each theory has prominent proponents. Attorney General William B. Saxby sparingly believes the conversion theory. He is convinced that Miss Hearst was not a reluctant participant in the bank robbery. He called the slaw common criminals. Saft Miss Hearst is part of Il Sald. The FBI would be justified if it broke into the slaw's hideout. Surprising support for the conversion theory came from the Rev. C.L. Williams, a minister popular in San Francisco leftist circes. It's possible, he said, that Patty may be having a love AF. Bank guard Edward C. Shea, a witness OT the robbery, described Miss Hearst as pretty wild. He said, she let it be known that she meant business, giving out vindictives and audits and all that, saying she would shoot the first guy that moved. Randolph Hearst, who tends to believe the brainwashing theory, termed success at the moment, he saled after listening to her April 3 tape. If that's brainwash, used psychological pressure time, and she responded. Mental health professionals tend to support ideas closely akin to the brainwashing theory. Dr. Friederlich Hacker, a University of Southern California psychiatrist whom Hearst has frequently consulted about the kidnapping, pointed out that coercion can wind up as consensus that appears to be true and can lead to pathological changes. These changes can cause addiction which may be totally free, but which in fact is the result of coercion. A University of California psychiatrist put it another way: the girl deserves all our sympathy. At her age, her identity may be a Terry her situation, perfectly normal guilt feelings and #bead for love and acceptance may have been subject to extraordinary stress. Probably what has happened to her lies somewhere between conversion and putting on a show for her own safety. Hearst is putting on an act because of threats to her own safety or the safety of those she cares about. He said he discounts the brainwashing theory because the slaw probably would have provided additional communications if some sort of weird conversion had taken place. Ironically, the FBI, which has been subject to some sharp criticism from Weed, tends to agree with his interpretation of Miss Hearst's behavior. FBI Director Clarence Kelly said Bureau investigators choose to take the lesser of the evaluations that she is a material witness and could have been coerced. Miss Hearst, described as precociously independent, strong, and mature, seemed forceful and convincing on last tape and in the bank. Friends nonetheless observed that she still is young and somewhat impressionable. As strong as she is, it's hard to believe she still has all her wits. Believes Miss. About her now, said one or them. Weed said she looks terrified in the bank photo, and appears to have lost more weight than anyone 5'2" can afford to lose. Weed and others maintain she is capable of great presence of mind and probably would do what she has to do in order to survive. Of course, only Miss Hearst herself knows the secret of her new identity as Tanya. Despite growing pessimism, her family and her friends still cling to the hope that she will someday come home to share it with them. Hearstkin says he was kidnapped. San Francisco, April 20. The roommate of a cousin of Patricia Hearst says he was kidnapped and held for 3 hours by 3 black men who mistook him for William R. Hearst II, police said today. The roommate, Van R. Bush, 31, said he was kidnapped Thursday morning as he left his apartment and was released after he convinced his abductors he was not Hearst. He was gagged and blindfolded but not harmed, he told officers. Police Inspector Ralph Brown said Bush was busy on key details, in eluding his abductors' description, and would be asked to take a lie detector test. William R. Hearst II is the son of the late John Randolph Hearst, a brother of Randolph A. Hearst. Randolph's daughter Patricia was dragged from her apartment February 4, and the terrorist Symbionese Liberation Army has claimed it kidnapped her. Bly vulnerable thing. And in. For explaining H.W. This came in the same day you wrote your brief note of April 16, 74 about a brief conversation with Freed, apparently in a car. We've seen nothing further on this. If he tried, he apparently was unable to interest California locals in his story about Younger preventing New Jersey from extraditing DeFreeze. JDW 23/APR/74 Urban Guerrilla Operations Feared. By Jack Anderson. The Symbionese Liberation Army's commando raid on a bank, with Patricia Hearst wielding an automatic rifle, has government officials frankly worried. They see it as a sign that the assassinations, bombings, kidnappings and other terrorist tactics, which plague other nations from Argentina to Britain, may soon hit our cities. For the trigger-happy slaw raiders are typical of a new breed of urban guerrillas who appear to be in touch with one another around the world. There is no coordinated underground guerrilla movement. Indeed, the insurgents often argue over ideology and tactics. But the FBI has evidence of increasing cooperation between guerrilla groups. In the Middle East, the Japanese Red Army is aiding the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which, in turn, is sharing training resources with Turkish dissidents. Irish Republican Army insurgents have obtained sophisticated weapons from Arab terrorists, who get financial support from Libya. Guerrillas in Bolivia, Chile, and Uruguay are believed to be sharing weapons, tactical information and training resources. And in Europe, Arab terrorists are cooperating with German anarchists. Intelligence reports warn they, too, have access to extremely advanced weapons. The FBI has linked SLA members to a student commune, known as the Peking House, outside Berkeley, California. The SLA allegedly has drawn inspiration from the Maoist philosophy taught at the Peking House. When SLA members Russell Little and Joseph Remiro were arrested for the murder of an Oakland school official, police found guerrilla literature in their possession. The texts apparently evolved from guerrilla manuals first produced by the Chinese communists. The Hearst kidnapping appears to have been taken right out of a Chinese text. The manual even suggests that the kidnapped victims should be ransomed to feed the poor. But the most ominous development in the revolutionary movement has been a shift from the countryside to urban ghettos. Entire manuals have been written especially for the urban guerrillas. These have been widely studied by insurgents in Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay. Evidence of the shift toward urban warfare has also appeared in Africa and the Middle East. The Symbionese Liberation Army is now imitating this new breed of revolutionaries. They stage daring robberies, murders, and kidnappings, then disappear into hideouts in the middle of crowded cities. This movement into heavily populated areas has forced American military experts to revamp their strategy for fighting guerrillas. The military is forbidden by law, however, from applying their expertise against domestic militants. The responsibility belongs strictly with the FBI. We have seen lists of the revolutionary groups the FBI keeps tabs on, and we have seen intelligence reports describing their activities. Maoist-style guerrilla gangs already are active in many American cities, according to these FBI reports, and more acts of terrorism can be expected in the future. Headlines and footnotes. Entertainer Sammy Davis, Jr., whose impulsive hugging of President Nixon was one of the highlights of the 1972 Republican Convention, would like to forget the incident when the president's name came up in his presence the other night. Davis winced and pleaded, "Don't mention his name to me." John Lennon, the former Beatle now fighting expulsion from the United States, was offered a sniff from a vial of cocaine at a recent Los Angeles party. Eyes flashing, Lennon knocked the vial to the floor and hissed, "Not around me." Lennon's friends say he has become militantly against drugs. Republican congressmen have been grumbling in the backrooms against their top impeachment lawyer Albert Jenner, a distinguished Chicago attorney. A move to oust him, say our sources, is by conservative reps Larry H. Argan and David Den. They don't think he been valiant enough in defending President Nixon against impeachment. The Environmental Protection Agency, WICL, has shelled out millions to major automakers to help them develop an efficient anti-pollution device, has refused to fund a gadget backed by consumer champion Ralph Nader. High public interest group now find themselves in a catch-22 situation. They cannot prove device works without AP funds, but EPA won't grant TH funds unless they prove the DC vice works. George Wetster, a prominent Nixon campaign supporter once considered for the job of Internal Re/NU Commissioner, has been running a profit-making TA seminar institute, feet urine Treasury Department official. He charges $175 for 2 days C sessions with experts such as Assistant Treasury Secretary John Hall and Treasury Tax Specialist Fernest Christian. Ha said neither were paid for the services. They participated in the seminars, he said, merely to help get important Treasury IR formation before the tax law / community. HWPYI, read today's law communique number 9, the one in Hearst says she was a willing participant and armed in the bank robbery last week, and in which Sink charges the Zebra operation is designed to get data on the entire black male community into computers and predicts Zebra never will be caught. It appears that the cops intercepted the tape before it could be delivered to KPPA and KSAN, probably after bugging the KPPA phone the day before. KPPA said it received 2 calls yesterday, from a voice sounding like that of an older woman, telling where to pick up the tape at a certain school in San Francisco. No tape was there. Today, G registered. Cops said the tape was delivered to them by an anonymous intermediary who ignored instructions to deliver it to the 2 radio Fefet ions. When KPFA asked a black cop if the police had been able to get the tape first after listening to the deals yesterday to KPPA, he reolied in a startled tone, "I'm not saying nothing about that." The apparent interception for LSO short-circuit further slaw instructions to deliver the tape first to WAPAC, a black community organization in San Francisco which helped in the Food Disatream But Ion program, which the hashtag was to get it to the 2 radio stations. WAPAC said it knew nothing about the tape and still had heard nothing from the cops at the time KPPA called to inquire. Doubt that any of the above will get into the establishment press, so note it here for any interest it may have for you. Zebra, in case you've neglected him, is the code name of the black killer or killers who has slain whites on the streets in SF in recent months without provocation. In the hunt for him, AJOO has ordered that all black males bearing any resemblance to the composite police picture of the alleged suspect be stopped and questioned and, of course, information compiled. JDW24 APR 74 McCord is due to appear on a local DC TV show in a few minutes, so instead of starting the paper, having read your April 24, 74 onslaught, a hasty response to it. As you suspected, it contains only VHAT has not appeared in the local press on any electronic reporting I caught. You imply a significance I believe can't be questioned. There is no useful purpose served by any police interception of what it will get in any event. The sheer fact that the police do intrude must be taken as a sign of police intentions. What can these be otherly, and what to the reasonable mind would manti making a very bad situation much, much worse? What should be done probably won't be, TND. I think Earst is the last guy to think of it and the first one who should. I3 there a court order for the obvious tapping of phones. If not, why not? If there is no court order, there should be an immediate civil action. All of this can be taken as an indication that the police are intent not upon being good cops but on inflaming T3ness to its fullest potential. Zebra has gotten considerable attention here. So has the police tactic. Hasty thanks, HW April 29, 74 Los Angeles Police Department named. I Sync 7 called ex-informer. Sty. By Leroy F.W. Aaron 1. Washington Post staff writers. San Francisco, May 10. A group of private investigators charged today that Donald DeFries, the Field Marshal Singui of the Symbionese Liberation Army and self-professed revolutionary, was once an informer for the Los Angeles Police Department. The group which calls itself Citizens Research and Investigation Committee, detailed its allegations at a crowded press conference this morning in the office of Charles Gary, and would really put him down. Is being sought with other members of the SLA for the kidnapping of Patricia Hearst more than 3 months ago. In support of its contention, the Citizens Research and Investigation Committee made available notes of a May 2, 1974, telephone conversation that it said occurred between Lake Headley, a committee investigator, and Sergeant R.G. Farwell, a Los Angeles police intelligence officer. In that conversation, Farwell reportedly told Headley of DeFreeze, "The guy's in trouble." One thing that Gelles denied the connection. "We have no record of Donald DeFreeze being an informant of this department at any time," said Police Commander Peter Hagan. Court files and probation reports do show that DeFreeze, in November 1967, led police to a cache of 200 stolen guns and implicated a colleague, apparently in return for a reduced charge and probation after he was arrested on a stolen goods charge. Attorney who often represents members of the Black Panther Party. The chief spokesman for the group, Donald Freed, a white Los Angeles writer and longtime supporter of the Panthers, claims that DeFreeze was a valued, protected informer for the Los Angeles #police during the late 1960s. One DeFreeze, 30, an escaped convict with a criminal record dating back to his mid-teens. The tube would be if anybody put out the word the guy was a big snitch. Later Headley referred to heavy Christ stuff DeFreeze was getting into in the late 1960s. Farwell said, "That's why I cut him loose. He was getting into that and I knew he was dead as far as his psychological state was concerned. One just couldn't deal with him." Police sources in Los Angeles May 1, 1874. Gelles detectives with whom the committee alleged that authority had long known, the Bachgern de DeFreeze MD that though he revealed it at the outset, then the blah would sever. Defzicht. By Paul Avery. Donald DeFreeze, the escaped conflay who now calls himself Sink, General Field Marshal of the Symbionese Liberation Army, was once a paid informer FRTHS Los Angeles Police Dogistizent, according to Gurses. Paul mid yesterday, however, that report is setkuo. Sauros in loa angles said yeb turde thut de FC zo bikama and Burmi in 1067.asd that thin relatio a hip with polds code imed untly late 1900 wan ha committed a bizarre line to a hitch lw what sent to. Later, Los Angeles Police Chief Edward Davies flatly denied there was any truth to such a report. He conceded DeFreeze had once turned in a crime partner to Los Angeles Hollywood, and then attidad that fugged herself to be a SF Chronicle. Sink called ex-informer. Freeze assailed if it was revealed he had been an informer and said, "The guy you dailies loose in 1969 even after lis enter THA state prison system set did time at Vacaville and Seoul." Donald Freed, spokesman the committee, usgod hat the legislature order TIU dependent investiga. A person WI background as AMIF could come to SD lead the STA. Investin for to said he lad med DeFreeze rola su conversation last week as Angelique Pol fi Sergi. Kerwell assigned to the Intali. Ensunit, Headley Sald Falwale was the detective to Hamdalroes reparut he quite Farwell as HAV. WHED #Q he was dead as far as his psychological adel was concerned. I just shouldn't deal with him. Headley said Farwell expressed concern for the years, on several occasions when he was already on probation, DeFreeze managed to avoid being sent to prison. Then, in 1969, he attempted to cash a stolen check made out in a woman's name, at a Los Angeles bank. Police were called and DeFreeze fired at officers and was himself wounded. That crime resulted in his being sentenced to multiple terms in Tate Prison. Pickup. 1 Farwell, contended by the Chronische Absturde. De line to discuss Ender, ira he bad he it dared not to talk in hin support. The order thane knowing about debris could be dishered OAS issued Sturday afternoon following the well was one of the LHS. The press conference held by THA Citieens Basenrich and Invs DeFreeze cooperated in atigation commits IP Sen 1967 case involving the Bowie Franelsko. Glary of Bohm 240 rifles and pistols from a Torrance gun shop. De Vriet was arrested for the armed robbery of a Los Angeles Prouty and was found to have one of the stolen pistols in his Pashizlan. De Vries then made a deal, loading Pustee the home of HS Urbni Pektir where the rems inder of he weapons were count, zwi. Freer despite a recommendation of Aftate PSCH Atrist he be imprisoned was given a year prohibition term. Farwell was transferred to the intelligence unit where Hudel de desk investigating alleged black Ranta groups, and de Vries eiuend as OUE of HLG MIPM ERS, the con 8C Sade Perther Polio Rashiop of Del Reed EFNLS with the intelligence unit Kamajram Laus Takwood, Humsolf a long-time informer for Tau Loa Angelet Potus. Tu Yeli Aga he Aus Thal Ral Gandhi Publici expused some of the inner workings of the Imit Takwood said he knew de Vries when the informer, taught yet a revolutionary work for the intelligence unit although de Frieso was arrested 6 03 charges involving possession. No Ohewal have supported his so-called cause, not even the craziest ahong the Gran now with Hein had a true piature of just weo he was beed made public T1 committee member aid. Owen yo imagine a bi-revolutionary doing the building. Shin the sparent do with which Dalksirkt, escaped Trum sold Fanon on May 5, 1973. How do you explain that they gave an IM800E with a record of escape and a propensity for violent behavior a job in a virtually deserted section of the Prigon, and that during the first hour of his first night on that job HA was left unguarded, enabling Hito, te simply walk. I.e. feel other uf inventigation F dal rezo and BLS creation of the slaw is demanded by facts such as these, said Comito's spokesman Fried.N chief. Davis labeled Fried's contentions an absolute lie. Donald Fried was a slaw 10, Profiles of Consuming Anger. From the 1966 to 67 Dos Pueblos High Yearbook. By Leroy F. Aarons. Washington Ost staff writer. Berkeley, California. Already the signs have blossomed here, like ominous harbingers of summer, viva sink, viva slaw, sink lives. Across the bay in Golden Gate Park a rock group calling itself Earthquake sings an ode to Patty Hearst. Some of you got a fine limousine, some of you got a good social scene. But now, you're sitting in the middle of madness. The middle of madness is just 53 miles but a light year away from the fast-growing fawn town of Santa Rosa, are there, between a new shopping center and a quickie hamburger stand, the Presbyterian Church of the Roses tries to maintain its dignity. Inside it is packed, this is the day of the memorial service for Nancy Ling Perry. It is a strangely bloodless service. There are a few young people of Nancy's age, but most are middle-aged and older, many wondering, perhaps, what have they done to our children? It passes understanding. Today, the meticulous minister intones, yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. 7 years ago Nancy Ling, daughter of a well-to-do furniture merchant, worshipped at this church. 7 weeks ago, calling herself Faiza, she was saying, on tape. All who choose to fight to the death are dying to live. 1 week ago, automatic weapon in hand, she gasped vainly for life as police bullets ripped through her lungs and spinal cord. The search for the remnants of the Symbionese Liberation Army, the fanatic group that kidnapped newspaper heiress Patricia Hearst last February 4, is almost over. But the deeper search will go on, the quest for meaning. What combination of events, what? Pat Solte seek at a California high school basketball game in 1967. See Profiles, A20, Colonel 1 Slaw 10, Profiles of Their Rage. O. Profiles, from A1. Little understood motivations conspired LTO move 10 individuals, most of them, from conventional small-town settings to kidnapping, murder, and ultimately, perhaps, suicide. It is a question that must haunt many parents who until now believed that their children's restlessness had limits beyond which rational humans %old not venture. The answers may never be fully known. 6 of the slaw are dead, 3, including, apparently, Patricia Hearst, are fugitives, and 2 are in prison. Then the past week, staff writers and special correspondents for the Washington Post have sought to assemble J-Yom pieces of the puzzle through interviews in the hometowns, among the families, relatives, and friends of SLA soldiers. V they found, not unexpectedly, that in many cases the stereotypes did not fit. True, most of the SLA troops grew up in the suburbs and towns of white America. But they were not consistently upper middle class. There were as many individual differences as there were individuals. The common thread, perhaps, was anger, a burning rage against a system which they became convinced, was congenitally antagonistic to significant change. It was a consuming anger, one that could not be assuaged by drugs, or by turning inward, or by taking up the smaller causes and limited goals that filled the late 60s void for so many of their peers. It was an anger heightened, and finally crystallized to action, by the intense contradictions surrounding the destiny of blacks, particularly the struggle within the prisons. From their Berkeley perch just miles from San Quentin and Vacaville prisons they could take part in that struggle with a sense of immersion in a firestorm. Fueling their anger was the milieu of Berkeley, Oakland itself, an environment so richly diverse and picaresque, so alien to the common soil of the nation that to the great mass of Americans it remains another country, somewhere west of their own value system. To this environment, a hub of freelance radicals, in the words of a local editor, where displaced people find it easy to live, where sexual cross-coupling is by now almost commonplace, where the guru and the gun runner live in opposition, where the most fanciful of ideas and possibilities are encouraged and tolerated, to this place came the SLA 10. They had already traveled, most of them, the continuum from peace marching to militancy. They had watched the Vietnam War wind down to a stalemate, and with it the energy FCF the movement. But, where others could move from cosmic dreams of a hang to the reality of daily life, they could not control their growing rage. It took an escaped black prisoner, to tell me the meaning of. The answer to Jajal my questions then was either silence or a reply filled with confusion, and lies. JF in 1966 she moved to the University of California at Berkeley, and began the restless search that carried her into uncharted territory. She dropped in and out of school, toying with var-2-ed career goals, experimenting with drugs. JJ in 1967 she married a black musician, Gilbert Perry, and, her older brother, Gary, recalls, became exposed zero to the experience of being black and oppressed and poor. It angered her. She felt not only that it shouldn't be that way, but not for another minute. The anger festered through the event of the late 1960s, notably an NC intelligence agency until 1962. His cavers in Korea and elsewhere were both U.S. Army and L3.S. Air Force. His training and service with the CIA included agent handling, training, and indoctrination. After 1962, he was enrolled in the CIA facility Inter-Christian University, in Tokyo, for special training in new psychological warfare techniques. During this secret training period and afterwards, his cover was Agency for International Development. 2. Aid. Upon completion of his training, Weisberg undertook agent handling in Cambodia, Thailand, India, Japan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Okinawa, and the Soviet Union. From February 5, 66 to September 19, 69. Weisberg was listed as an administrator for a civilian firm, Pacific Architects and Engineers, Inc. of Los Angeles, a multinational consortium. One of the secret tasks of Till's huge firm was to provide logistical support to the CIA Bionics assassination program in Vietnam. Weisberg's job, under this cover, was indoctrination of assassination and terrorist cadre, in the Phoenix program. 4. Evely J. Younger. After IHE assassination of Robert F. Kennedy in June 1968, Younger, as the then District Attorney of Los Angeles, set up an elite police unit known as Special Unit Senator. SUS. Elements of this group and Los Angeles Police Department intelligence were reorganized into the super-secret CCS, Criminal Conspiracy Section. Styled after the CIA. Younger knew of DeFreeze's role in CCS and, in fact, DeFreeze subpoenaed Younger to testify in his behalf in 1969. After becoming California Attorney General, Younger maintained close contact with CCS. 5. The Hearst family as S target. Few people remember that it was the Hearst newspaper chain, now much smaller, that led the attack on the Rockefellers in the 1940s. For example, the Garstonked Los Angeles Examiner was one of the few papers in the U.S. to point out, September 12, 48, that the atomic secrets were not stolen but given away. This was in reference to the secret testimony of former FBI agent Lawrence Curley, before a congressional committee. Curley's testimony showed the Rockefellers were active in seeing to it that the atomic secrets were given to the Soviets in the early 1940s before the US had completed its first atomic bomb. Curley was head of a 200-man FIS team tracking top-level Soviet secret police agents in the US. He was ordered by the state OPART-MEM not to arrest them, even though they were about to leave the US with atomic samples and atomic secrets. The implications, that the Alger Hiss case was cut short, thanks to Chief Investigator Richard M. Nixon, and to supply scapegoats, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were framed and sent to TB electric chair in 1953. Angry, Curley and 30 Oker FBI agents resigned. He went on to become a writer for the Hearst-owned New York journal American. The Rockefellers, principal force behind the scan of the CIA, launched financial and oilier attacks on the journal American and other Hearst papers, many then folding up. In 1973, Hearst Corp through their Avon Books El Avislan, brought out one of the first attacks on the CIA, the Glass House Tapes Star. There has been a raging battle between the CIA's super elitists and gangster-dominated Dirty Tricks Department. Hearst's problem is that since about the 1910s, his business relied upon gangsters. Pony Hearst, apparently brainwashed, has been sucked into the slaw through her former teacher and boyfriend, Stephen Weed, believed to be himself a government agent provocateur. Like in the 1940s, the FBI is getting in middle. They obviously know what their competitor, the CIA, is doing in the slaw. Prior to the Putty Hearst kidnapping, the FBI knew of the plan to abduct her. As a result, the FBI does not push too hard in the slaw case. The Hearst family is well aware of these details but does nothing about it. To try to extricate their daughter, they are offering a so-called reward fee or data leading to her safe return. Purpose: to lay the groundwork for martial law in the United States. The CIA, through their apparatus the SLA, is engaging in illegal domestic violence in this country. We wish to thank Citizens Research and Investigation Committee, Donald Freed, editor, for sharing their research data with us. This fact sheet prepared by the staff of Citizen 3 * Committee, Sherman H. Skolnick, Chairman to 9800 So. Oglesby, Chicago. UL.60617. Clean up the COURTS 31-2, 375 57 41 degrees R 78 to the power of 8210. Hotline News 731-1100.